Dito po sa Dodel.
Ito? What?
Okay. You should all see a button saying it's recording and you are
Yeah.
being recorded now. If you're on this show, you are being recorded. All of the Yes California CalExit campaign meetings are, thank you, Matt, for doing that, are recorded and posted to the public. The public is allowed to speak at 1 p.m. or whenever we finish up our meetings thereafter. From 11 to 1 is only for board members to speak. We only ask that board members attend 1 hour once a month, and we try to cover the essential business from 11 to 12. So if you can make it from 11 to 12 any Sunday, every single Sunday we meet at 11. If you can make it from 11 to 12, that's the essential business. If you're busy, life happens, family, you're celebrating Ramadan, we understand and we love you for it. So try to make 1 hour a month. And that's why we have a large group of people, so that there's always stuff going on. Okay, let's get right into it. I'm going to cover the agenda real quick. There was a presentation by Julina Acosta. I talked to Julina earlier this week. I texted and emailed her. She's a mom and she has a lot of kids and a lot of people she takes care of. So she has a lot of difficulty with being, on our schedule, because she's a single mom I'm not sorry, she's not a single mom, but she's a mom and she's a huge community leader, massive respect for her. So whenever she gets here, Julina is going to go first, and she's going to talk about returning land to the indigenous so that they can keep their cultures intact, because many of their cultural sites are barred from them. Even in progressive California, many indigenous people do not actually have access to important sites that allow them to retain their culture. Indigenous culture is very much tied to the land. They have places that are important for them to go, much as we have churches and synagogues and mosques. And when they're blocked from that, it's essentially like telling somebody you're a Christian and you can never go to church. It destroys their culture. It tears down their belief in themselves and it ruins them. So yes, California is dedicated to return California, dedicated to returning all federal land to the indigenous as a start, and further dedicated to making sure that the indigenous have contact to their cultural sites. Now, we stop short of saying, let's collapse the economy, because I was originally a Republican. But a lot of this land, a lot of people don't live on. So there's really not a loss economically there. It's about 5% of the economy. We can afford to do it. And California, this government, while I love it, did commit a formal genocide equivalent in organization to the Nazi Party of 1941. There were campaigns to tell people to go out and chop off heads and shoot children, bring them back to Sacramento in wagon carts, and you would be paid money. I literally have the receipts printed. So it happened. It's an ugly period. It was equivalent to the Nazis in 1939. And we cannot be proud as Californians if we don't right our wrongs. And I look at Germany as an example. Germany has great relations with Israel. Germany's leading the world. Why? Because they fessed up. They admitted what they did was wrong. They apologized for it, and they've been dedicated to doing that. We need to do that here in California. The governor made a brilliant move. Hold on, Nick. I see your face. One thing. When he said that there was a genocide. But then the indigenous said, okay, that's great. Now, what about fixing it? So there was no response. That was a year ago. Not good enough to apologize. Great move, not good enough. So I can celebrate and commend and say we need to go forward. Additionally, we have contacted the South African Independence Movement. We are having the youth leader for the South African Independence Movement. That is a democratic, mixed race, egalitarian movement in South Africa, Cape to secede from the rest of South Africa. So South Africa is basically failing as a country. I study foreign policy, it ain't working out. There's a group of mixed race people in the Cape region going back 200 to 300 years who have a distinct culture. And they're saying we can survive quite well on our own. We have a different culture. We're way more diverse. We are way more open to different races and ethnicities coming together. And our economy is frankly much more functional. Sound like any place you ever heard talking about secession? Huh? You ever heard that argument before? Huh? So they're coming out whenever they're here, we'll get to them. Then we're going to get to housekeeping. So I'm going to ask right now, I'm sorry, then we have housekeeping. There's some big announcements. Then we have a presentation by Dewank Mahajan on artificial intelligence learning, figuring out the best search terms for CalExit, and then selling the data for, as Dewank says, multi-millions of dollars in fundraising. That's according to Dewank. There's also some other updates from Nicholas Wildstar on the recall debate, Marcus Poulos on accepting a panel on secession hosted by Adam Kokesh, Outreach Director John Simha, and on connecting with Cole Sternberg of the Free Republic, Jason Wright on an example of the Bay Area Regional Council as an example of where this group should go, Jason Wright on Foreign Relations Committee to get started, and then finally a vote on Sue Hirsch if she would like to join the board. We'll also have a discussion after that on the fundraising committee. I'll walk you through this as we get going. So right now I'm going to turn it over and say, Julina Acosta, if you're here, this is your time to speak. You do not have to. I understand that you're going, it's a challenging issue for you. So if you're comfortable speaking, we have an opportunity for you. If you are not comfortable speaking, you don't have to at all. And you have a standing offer. Any meeting, anytime in the future, anytime you're free, you get 10 minutes to talk about land back. So Julina Acosta, would you like to speak now? Don't have to. Okay. Is the representative from the South African Independence Party here? Okay. Sorry, that coffee was really strong this morning. Then we're going to move to housekeeping. I'll need Louis Marinelli's help on this. Louis, are you there? He's here, but Louis. Okay, great.
I'm here.
So
I was here. Yes.
So let me start this off real quick. We've had explosive growth, more than I projected. This idea of forming this board started with Jason Wright. About a month ago, he goes, why don't we just get back together and start building Yes Up? And I was like, I don't know. And he kept pushing me, and he was right. So we started with a board of directors, and typically boards of directors have 9 to 13 people. And then Louis pointed out, dude, the Google search engines are not working because you're already at 30. So you're saying it's board of directors and Google, and people are going, well, you can't have a 30-member board of directors. It looks weird. So we go, I looked all over the place. Louis is like, you got to find a better name. Board of trustees. Board of trustees have 20 members. Well, you just blew past that. So now that looks weird on the Google rankings. So given that everything I told you about being a board member is the same, you have all the same powers, all the same decision-making, and we're going to announce some additional powers today. I would like to propose, and I'm asking for your support, that we have one last change of the name to the CalExit Congress. A Congress is a group that votes and it approves funding, and you will be doing the same. Additionally, I just need something. I don't want to be coming back to you guys every 5 weeks going, sorry, we outgrow that name. Let's have another debate on another name because the search rankings aren't working. We need people to just accept and go right to the site. So I've talked to a couple of you about the Congress. I've explained that it's just the name change and everything you heard is exactly the same. And a lot of you were like, yeah, fine. Why are we even talking about it? So let me offer it to you. Is anybody disgusted and can't live with us changing the name to CalExit Congress so that we can end this thing and I can move forward? Yes, Adam.
Yeah, I don't know. This is jumping ahead, but something I wanted to include in my introduction is that, we're here because we have faith in you as an organizational leader, at least to give you this shot. And when I saw this as the large board of directors model, I was like, hey, sure. You want to call me a director? I hope I have a meaningful vote in leadership in some way. But, I'm here as an activist, as a volunteer to support the cause and give you a few hours a week of my time. And allow you to organize it how you see fit. So you have my support. If you want to call us a board of directors or a Congress or whatever, we are this bigger, core team behind you. And I support you generally making that perfect. At least I'm speaking for myself. I support you using me You want to put me at whatever level, whatever form, whatever title, yeah, doesn't matter to me.
I'll second that.
For sure. Thirded. I'm already a baboon, so I'm good.
I have a great introduction for Adam. I just want to get some housekeeping out of the way. And then Adam, I'm going to blow you up so big, you don't even know. So I got a pony coming in and a dog. We're going to have what we call in the Valley, the dog and pony show. So they're behind this cape. I don't want to show you, but it'll be here in a second.
I got cats and dogs to get to, dude.
Oh, let's just do housekeeping and then, well, Adam, if you only have a few, oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. It's cool.
Okay, so let me, that seems like no one's horribly opposed that we're going to keep the word CalExit Congress. Matt, yes.
I am a veteran of the Occupy movement, was in Occupy Riverside from its inception until it was shut down. And something we noted is that Congresses tend to be elected by other people. We are at this point still a direct democracy. And in the Occupy movement, we called ourselves the General Assembly. Another note is that the self-government of the indigenous nations calls themselves, what is it, a General Council? But I'm kind of partial to GA myself, General Assembly. That way we're indicating that we're not elected by somebody else, okay? That we are a direct democracy and we can turn around and form committees like they did in Occupy and all that sort of thing. So to me, a Congress is elected by other people. A GA, we just come together, which is
Good
what we're
point.
doing.
Thank you. I hear you. There's this thing called the internet and social media. And then there's this other thing called the lay public. So if you go around using the word sovereignty, what? I know what sovereignty means. The actual public knows what sovereign. Some people do. Oh, we're sovereign California. Huh? So I hear you and you're right, but Matt, you're too damn smart and you're smarter than the average public. We got to have a term that Google picks up and a million people get and they have no questions about right away. By the way, CalExit Congress is slick. It rolls right off the tongue. So I hear you, Matt, and I agree with you. For marketing, I'm suggesting we stick to CalExit Congress. Is everybody still okay with that, given that for Google search analytics, it works better? Although Matt technically is correct.
I would say that
Marcus, okay.
For the search analytics, that actually you're putting yourself in a disadvantaged position ranking against the California Electric Code, the California Energy Commission, a lot of other things, and Congress. How many people have that as a keyword to rank them on a search engine? So making it a very commonly sought to rank word makes your climb harder to make it to the top of that phrase. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily the smartest way to go for your SEO by choosing something so common. Catchy, unique, and short is the winner, with as many backlinks as you can lay your hands on to climb the engine as economically as possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Marcus,
Yeah.
real quick.
Yes, Louis.
When we were talking about this, I think that it kind of rolled off our tongues, as you said, because, as you said, the Americans had the Continental Congress. And now we have, or could have, the CalExit Congress. They both serve as the same general function. And people are generally familiar with what the CalExit Congress was. And to have it sound like that, because it would be like the first kind of Congress of people who support independence from their imperial rulers, is kind of a play on words of history, letting history repeat itself. So it kind of has that kind of story behind it. I think that that's an interesting story. I agree with the fact that, you know, about the elections thing, but I think that the Congress, if we have a CalExit Congress, the Congress itself can create its rules about who is a member and how to become a member at some point in time. I think right now it's open, but I don't think it should stay open just from anybody coming off the street forever. It should be some kind of a Congress that has some kind of a process for entering it. Doesn't necessarily have to be an election, but I wouldn't want to see just everybody who just says, I want to join, just comes and join like it's a treehouse club. So there should be some kind of a process for joining and for membership and for committees and things of that nature. So I think that in time, as you guys develop the, whatever you want to call it, CALEXIT Congress, I think you'll have more of a Congress than what was being spoken about General Assembly.
Yes, hold on. I see Adam and Walter are going to go in order of things. So 562 first, then Adam, then Walter. 562. Phone number 562.
Oh, that's me. This is Don.
Don. Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm sorry I'm listening in, but I'm actually working. I'm with clients right now.
Oh, good.
Just for legal reasons, are you thinking about doing this as the nonprofit group name, or are you just doing this? No, okay. Because there's going to be legal issues if you do. If you're keeping us separate, we're good. I'll shut up. Bye.
Love you, Don. This is not the 501c3 or fundraising vehicle at all. This is just a name so that I can have a large group of people who say, yes, it's reasonable to have a conversation.
I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
I'm cool with
Marcus, if I can just explain that part, because we talked about this at length earlier. As you guys have discussed, you wanted to create a legal status for Yes California as a 501c4. Also, I would recommend that you consider the 527 status, or maybe both. Both have different unique benefits. But the bylaws of that organization, whatever it is, and whatever form it takes place in, will delegate certain powers to this separate entity called the CALEXIT Congress. Like Marcus was saying, it would have the power to vote on how donations are spent. And so because the 501c4 or 527 group delegates through its bylaws to this CALEXIT Congress, a separate entity, those abilities, then I think that it would serve the function of having a 501c4 or 527 with a board of directors. That's the actual legal group, and then a CALEXIT Congress is kind of an advisory board that provides its consent to what the group does.
Let me, yes, Adam and Walter will get you in 1 second. Just to add on to that, the CALEXIT Congress is just an org of people, not technically a group, like we've been talking for every meeting this so far. Separately, we're going to create a fundraising vehicle. That'll be a 527 or 501c4. We're still debating. That is a totally separate thing from this. A few people, no more than 4, will be on that. That will be an official board. It's got to follow the law. This group that you're part of right here ain't that at all. So fundraising vehicle, massive, big group of people that I need a term that doesn't trip off the Google search analytics and that everybody gets and that we can move on with, because this is the 3rd week of debate about the term and it's eaten up a lot of my time. So I just need a decision so I can move forward. Yeah, I'll get you out in 1 second. Sorry, I got to get this done because we're already, so people don't get lost. This group of 4 is going to do fundraising. It'll be completely legal, etc. What I was about to announce is that this group of 4 is going to say, hey, in their bylaws, we don't spend the money unless this group of 40 or more says how we spend it. So this Congress is going to direct all funding for the fundraising machine. Now, the fundraising machine is going to do what it needs to do by law in order to raise money, bring it in. Totally kosher, totally on the up and up, a lot of technical decisions, no room for debate. But then how does that money get spent? And what does it get spent on? Well, that's you. That would be you, the Congress. And I want to get this group big for normative programming, which I've already explained. Basically, the more humans saying it's okay to talk about something, the more we convince more people it's okay to talk about something. And our entire goal here at Yes California is not to convince you that CALEXIT is the answer, but it is to convince you that after January 6th, what do you mean we don't need to be talking about building a lifeboat? You know, my analogy is this. You and I are sitting on a boat and the boat's sinking. And then the water comes up to our ankles, comes up to our knees, it's rising. And I walk up to you and go, can we talk about building a lifeboat? And you look at me and go, idiot. Who's the idiot? I got 40 people to agree to be part of this conversation on that story alone. I think I can get 3 times that number. So the fundraising thing, hey, totally separate. This group is going to direct the funding. The other thing is that this group is going to start doing votes on resolutions. So every week, and this was Lewis's idea, and I love it. This came to me from Lewis. Hey, every week we're going to talk about an issue. We're going to have a vote from this group, and that will be the official Yes California statement on it. So a coup in a foreign country. Do we support it? Do we not? Whatever a majority of the people at this Congress approves, that's the official Yes California opinion. We will be issuing resolutions from the Congress every single week. So every week, this organization is going to be taking statements on Texas independence, independence in Scotland, failure of the American government to provide vaccines that they said, failure of the American government to provide stimulus checks like they promised, and it'll be official Yes California statements. I will not be able to vote on any of those resolutions. Only you. So it will literally be what the board said is what Yes California is saying. Additionally, we'll be voting on funds. So yes, you will be directing funds, and yes, you will be making resolutions, which is a lot like a Congress. Now that I cleared that up, Adam, and then the professor. Adam.
Thank you, Marcus. I'd like to suggest a motion for process here, but first, since it came up in the comments, I noticed that it popped up on my screen. Someone mentioned we need to have a process for an executive committee as well, a vice chair or vice, whatever you call yourself, treasurer, secretary, to part out that, but also to create a more active core team around you. And I was wondering, do you have people, I think in the spirit of what I said earlier, if you appointed the first XCOM, I don't think anybody would object to that. If you recruited people who were willing to do that work, you know, we would all be happy to, you know, stamp that whatever special authority they get. Do you have, so can you make quick answer that question? And then I'd like to make a motion. So what do you have in mind for that?
So my brain can only handle so much. And I learned something in the Valley. Don't start a second project till you finish the first one. I need a name for this Congress, and I need that solved before I'm spending time thinking about anything else. This is week 3 where I have to have this debate. So no offense. Yes, I want to get to that issue. I need this settled. I need to settle, and I need to not.
So my motion is to help get us to a point where we can close debate and say, so I would move for this body to give Marcus the authority to take this week and take advice from this body on these various issues, but of branding, organization, executive committee, legal structure, search engine optimization, all of these issues. I think I want to do is sort of end the debate here, so we don't try to make this phone call about resolving all of those, but we entrust Marcus to come back to us with the answer to that and to ask each of us for input over the next week as necessary through the WhatsApp group or however Marcus wants to take that input.
I don't want to spend another week on this. I hear you, and I love the idea of making the committee. I really would like, it would be my dream if people could go, you know what, let's make that committee and we can live with the term CalExit Congress. If I could just get people to say we can live and with the term CalExit.
Okay, so we want to do this. So I'll split my motion into say today we just vote on the branding, the name, the official title for this body, and then we close debate on all these subsidiary issues and empower Marcus to lead a committee to resolve those then over the next week, or ask other people to do that, and come back to this body with like, you know, 1 paragraph proposal or bylaws or whatever for the next week's conference call. Yeah. So I move. So I'll restate my motion. I move we adopt Marcus's suggestion for the terminology of California Congress as he stated, and to move to taking input from this body on all these subsidiary issues and come back to us with a proposal on them next week.
Is there a second?
I second
that. Second.
Okay, Walter,
Yes.
Professor Williams, comments? Thank you, Adam.
I have a comment.
I'm sorry.
We're going to go to Walter first, and then we'll go to the next person. Professor Williams?
Yes. I would make one objection to what you said, where you said that you would not have a vote on something. I think you should have a vote on everything. So that would be one suggested change I would make. I apologize because since I haven't been able to be at recent meetings, this is the first time I've heard the term CalExit Congress. The only thing that I would ask you and everyone to consider is the emphasis on that seems to be the word exit. And I think we ought to be thinking more longer term. And so why not just call it California Congress? Would that be something that might be more identifying our state as, in full, rather than just Cal, which to me sounds a little bit short-sighted.
It would not. So we're effectively, I hear you. And again, like Matt, you're very logical and you're very brilliant. We have to have terms that someone with an 8th grade education gets like that. CalExit is tied to Yes California. End of story. We own that term. So that's us and that branding. We can't, I walk away from that, we lose our Google search analytics. So it comes down to search analytics.
That's other.
And
Yeah,
and
Marcus,
this is
if I can just chime in for a second.
Yeah.
I like the idea, and I mean, you and I were speaking before about the idea of kind of a shadow government to kind of, well, you guys what shadow government is. And I think that what was just proposed would be something similar to that, because it would be so broad that it would cover almost any topic. But then that would also be the Achilles heel, because people wouldn't know, for hearing about it for the first time, that this was a group that was dedicated to secession. And so therefore we would spend time explaining to everybody what is the CalExit, or what is the California Congress, and how is that related to CalExit? Whereas our mission is pretty uniformly about having California separate from the United States in one form or another. So I think it's important for the name, at least for our mission, to be related directly to that, so that people who do see it for the first time don't ask, what is that? Or maybe they want to join it and they think it's a shadow government and they get disappointed because it's secession. I think a shadow government would be a cool thing, because I don't particularly like the government in Sacramento. So I like the idea of having some kind of group that would just be on their heels all the time. But that's a different conversation for another time. But yeah, I've just basically stated that my position on the matter is that it should be something directly related to the mission of secession, so that people aren't confused.
There was one other person who wanted to comment. I think it was one of the phone numbers. Okay. Any other comment?
It is Don.
Don.
Look, Brexit's having a lot of bad marketing because of the exit term. I really just want to caution everybody on that. I would be more interested in like a California Independence Congress, because then everybody's very clear on what's going on. And this goes back to when we were talking 3 years ago about doing stuff. Brexit has a really bad connotation to it, and we might end up with the same bad, marketing image with exit on the name. That's just my word of caution.
Adam? You have to unmute yourself.
Excuse me. Yeah. So to state the spirit of the first part of my motion, it's that Marcus has come to us with a well thought out branding proposal that he wants to go with for now. I say, we don't hack it apart. We can question it. We can come back. We can change it later. But I say, we give him the blessing on the branding. We're behind him on that, and to move on to the next phase. And we can come back and change it later. None of this is set in stone. None of this is any kind of commitment.
How about this? We could try CalExit Congress for 2 weeks, and we can revisit the issue in 2 weeks. If it's a horrible, horrible, horrible decision, we can come back and go, whoa, that was a mistake. Could people live with us trying it for 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think I said that.
Great.
There was a comment about California Freedom Congress. I would just point out that the acronym for that would be similar to an already existing independence group in California.
Well, and Don's right. That's why I asked Don to be on this team. I've asked many of you have marketing backgrounds. Yes, so there is that. However, it's not a simple call. CalExit is known amongst 15 million people here in California. The other terms aren't. So we switch terms. How do I get 15 million people to know that? Additionally, if you type in CalExit, Yes California pops up right up at the top. So we start switching terms. We're starting at square one, building back up. Additionally, California independence movement is really wordy. So I get it. It's technically a better call than CalExit. CalExit does have some baggage from Brexit, but we have to go back to 2016. And a lot of our strength goes from 2016 to where we are now. And we have to build on the strengths that we had. I don't want to recreate a new base. For example, Facebook has all sorts of issues. I get it. But we got 40,000 people there. I'm not starting from scratch. So, okay, 2 more comments and then I'm going to end the debate. Okay. This has gone on. And so Marcus Poulos and then one other person, and then we're moving on. Marcus Poulos.
I think TJ had something to say as well, Marcus.
Marcus Poulos, then TJ. Was there anyone else who had a comment? We're going to get everybody and then we're moving on. Okay, Marcus Poulos, then TJ.
What I was going to say is pretty much what you just said, is that there is a motion on the floor to basically, at least for now, adopt the name. And it sounds like to me there is like 2 people amongst however many people there are here that have an issue. They will likely lose the vote. I think it is more important to move forward with the vote, take the vote on the motion, and then move forward.
TJ. Thank you, Marcus.
My only thoughts on it is if you're trying to get it decided, it sounds to me like you have some action that you want to take that may incur some expense in moving you in a direction. And would it be better to, instead of doing that work twice, table it for a week for people to seriously come at it? Because it's a marketing thing. You don't lose your previous marketing. You get to choose what links through, backlinks and things that make it onto your term. So you're not losing what you already had, but whether or not you're taking advantage of your opportunity to really like focus group the idea of what it could be. And I would recommend the idea of the shorter the better, right? It's marketing. If you can't get it in 3 or 4 words that are easy for anybody to spell, you're missing the boat. You're missing the boat. And I think the idea of if we could come up with something that also folded over into long term, that you're not going to have to rebrand once you succeed.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to call the question. I think that's the thing. So can 2/3 of you agree with me? I understand there's a lot of opinions. I get it. And I want to listen to everybody. Call the question. Can 2/3 of you live? Yes, sir.
May I just restate the motion as 3 parts here very succinctly. 1, to approve Marcus's proposed branding and organizational structure as he has described it for now. 2, to ask him to come back to us next week with an answer to as many of the related subsidiary organizational questions to run by us for approval in a similar fashion on next week's conference call, and then to make Marcus's next agenda item taking input from this body on all of the subsidiary organizational questions. That is my motion, and I support calling the question.
I think I follow. So basically, just because I'm still learning Robert's rules, we can live with CalExit Congress for at least a couple of weeks. We will have a debate again next week on the formal structure of the funding machine and feeding into the Congress and how that all works. Okay. Who is okay with that? Please raise your hand.
I will officially second that motion.
Okay.
So that we can just bring it up for vote real quick.
Robert Stark.
Yeah, I approve.
Okay. Mike Coles, if you could put up a hand or a thumbs down. And 707-376. Okay, that's 2/3. Okay, we're gonna call it the CalExit Congress for 2 weeks. We will revisit the issue. We are going to talk about the organization again next week. However, what I'm proposing is this be a real Congress, and it directs funds and it makes resolutions. And so every week we would have votes on issues, and we would issue resolutions on the Yes California website that says, this is what the Congress approved. And this is what the Yes California Congress approved. And so that's a resolution from us. Additionally, funds raised by the 501c3 or whatever funding machine it is would be directed by this Congress. That's what I'm proposing. We will have a final round of voting on that next week, but that is the structure I'm proposing. I think it's a good one. I would hope that you could trust that I spent a lot of time looking into this and talking with people, and that it might be the best option. I know many of you are like, this caveat and that caveat, and I hear you. There's no perfect answer. I think it's a really good answer. I want to be inclusive. I want this to be a real Congress, and I'm doing what I can to make that happen so that your votes matter. Everything I told you about being a board member still stays the same. None of that has changed. Everything you've seen in the emails before is exactly the same. We're only proposing that we call it the CALEXIT Congress, and that now you accept the idea of this group would vote on spending funds raised by the funding machine, and this group would vote on resolutions each week. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much. We're moving forward with calling it the CALEXIT Congress, and we are going to describe that funding mechanism and organizational display that I described for now going forward. If the board really hates it, we'll go over it and retrofit the organization next week. But I think it's a good proposal. Spent a lot of time. I've talked to many of you behind the scenes, and Lewis had some really good ideas, and I think it's great. A Congress that actually approves resolutions, statements from a group on issues every single week saying, here's what an independent California would think like, and a group of many people who actually direct funding that's raised in the most kosher manner possible. That's perfect. That's a super professional group that I always wanted. Okay, moving on to more housekeeping. Lewis and I were talking, and I'm going to defer to Lewis, about relaunching Nation Builder. Nation Builder was the software that helped propel President Obama to become elected. It is the software used by all political professionals in America and around the world. Now, it costs a certain pretty penny, but with 120,000 people in it, we can actually get it up and running within a day, if we had the funds to pay for it. I'll turn it over to Lewis. Lewis, what is Nation Builder, and why is it super great at making our organization the best in America?
Well, Nation Builder is a platform that upon which you can build a website, a very interactive website, specifically designed for political advocacy and political campaigns. So when you buy a domain name, for example, abc.com, you have to build your own website. You can use templates, you can use WordPress. Those are mostly for blogs and for publishing text and news stories and things of that nature. And you can add widgets and gadgets, and you can modify your themes and add different elements if you know how to do that. But Nation Builder, it all comes in one package. You pay a monthly subscription, and you have all the gadgets, all the widgets, petitions, the ability to collect contacts, email, phone numbers for text message. You can send out text message blasts, email blasts. You can find people, your contacts and your members based on zip code, area code, whatever you want to search by your filter. You can do by it depending on how much information they provide you when they sign up on the website. But you can really narrow it down. If you need people in 92102 to go to some Walmart to sign a petition, you can shoot out an email blast to those specific people and a text message blast to those specific people, so that you're not sending out a text message or an email to 120,000 people for really a group of people that's in 92102. So it really has those kind of fine-tuned tools that allow you to grow a campaign and have those people organized and assign people in particular areas to precinct leaders, is what they were called last time we used it. So that means, for example, I don't know, I see here Adam Kokesh on the screen. So let's say Adam Kokesh lives in Sacramento. We could assign him to Sacramento, and then anybody who lives within, let's say, we determined 20 miles of that epicenter would be his responsibility to contact them and to organize them and to reach out to them. They would be the local contact, or he would be the local contact for all of those people. And that allows us, as Marcus wanted to do, to create chapters across the state of California. Well, chapters need members. Chapters also need a precinct leader. So all of these tools are all there. You pay for the subscription and you have all of these tools, and probably a lot more than I just mentioned, because it's so robust that I think that the opportunities are endless if you know how to use the system. Like Marcus said, it's kind of pricey. The price depends on the number of members you have, and they base that logic based on the fact that the more members you have, the more likely you are to raise donations from them. So therefore you can pay them for the service. So I don't know exactly, I'm still waiting for an email response from the sales team over at Nation Builder on their website to have a basic idea of what it costs, but our group is frankly too big. We have too many supporters, too many contacts in our mail list, that they don't offer a quote on the website for that size. Therefore, I'm still waiting for, because we have to go to enterprise. If you go to the website, you'll see something like, I don't know, basic, pro, and enterprise. And we are at the enterprise level because we have so many contacts that we would be able to automatically upload into that website from the get-go, because most of them came from the time when we had Nation Builder in 2016, 2017, and they gave us their opt-in. And since then, if they've signed up through other means, they've given us their opt-in. So basically, we would just be migrating our lists of contacts to the Nation Builder, and that would give us, as Marcus was saying, well over 100,000 contacts that would automatically be placed on a map that we could see as admins where they are, where our core clusters of supporters are, and then use that information and extract from that as much as possible, organization-wise, fundraising-wise, and so on and so forth. But it would require an initial investment, because we would have to, I guess, pay for the first couple of months on a monthly basis until it gets up and running, and then we can actually start soliciting donations from people once it's up and running and we know how to use it. And from that point in time, we probably will start receiving enough donations, at least I would hope, certainly, to pay for the website. And therefore it would probably pay for itself within a couple of months. But I would expect that it's going to be something around $1,500 to $1,800 per month. A question from Marcus Pullis.
Hey, Lewis.
Yes, who's that? I
Then Marcus will get
this,
you.
This is Sam. Do you buy the software and then you own it, or do you have to pay a subscription like monthly or something?
Basically, it's a hosting subscription service.
So you do pay monthly.
Yeah. If you stop paying, then basically I think your website goes like, your website is being parked for free or something.
Yeah, you lose access. Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
I think you lose public access, but I think you could still get on the back end, at least to, if you wanted to get your contacts downloaded as an Excel file and stuff like that. So there's still more to learn about that. I only am a very beginner user of Nation Builder because we used it in 2016, 2017. And I'm sure that people who are better than I am with coding and computers would be able to really get into Nation Builder and make a really amazing tool. So we'd have to look into if anybody on this group has those kind of skills, maybe that's something that we could explore.
What is that cost per month?
I don't know. I'm waiting for the response. I'm waiting for the response from the what's it called, the sales team. I think it's the weekend, so they're not responding, but I think it's going to be somewhere around 1,500 to 1,800 is what I would just imagining, because their website says it costs, Marcus, what was it? $600 for 30,000 members?
Yeah, yeah, it was like 500 or 600 for 30,000.
It was like 500 or 600 for 30,000. That's what the website says on its front page. So if you kind of take that and you kind of grow it by like 3 times, then maybe it's something around 50. Maybe it's cheaper because it's a thing of mass, of buying in bulk or something like that. Maybe it's like 1,200, but I think it's definitely going to be over 1,000. I just got to wait for the answer from sales team, because they say that groups with that size get a contract that's customized specifically for them. So there is no short answer for that. We have to wait for them to customize our contract.
Okay, Marcus, then TJ.
My advice, because we used Nation Builder on our campaign, my advice is you definitely will want somebody that wants to know right now. Like, for instance, Lewis, I think it was, said that he is a basic, understands it basically. Well, I understand it basically, and there's no way I can navigate Nation Builder. I couldn't, and I've had some experience with it. So you're going to need someone who understands the ins and outs of Nation Builder. And and Adam can speak to this too, but when we initially got it, we kind of had some people that knew a little bit, but you really need somebody who knows how to dive down and figure out all the widgets. Because yes, you're right. Nation Builder has a bunch of build outs, a lot of tools, a lot of things you can use. But if you don't know how to get to them, it's not, it's, I don't want to say it's not user friendly, but you have to have somebody who is tech savvy enough to direct you.
Yeah, it's very tedious. It's a very tedious thing. My skill level is basically I was able to put together the way this website presents itself on the front end and send out email blasts. I could send a text message blast. I could organize the members into different categories. I could filter differently. Those basic kind of things is what I was able to do. But there were so many things that you could add on and things that you had to go in to actually edit the theme to do, like make things like child themes and so on and so forth. That's already a little bit beyond my ability. And so we used Nation Builder. We were very successful with it, but that success we had was still with just a basic use of Nation Builder. So like Marcus was saying, if we had someone who was tech savvy, we could just be even more effective with it.
TJ.
Yeah, I don't know what your level of comfort with and experience outside of Nation Builder is with like website building and hosting and so on and so forth. But like a lot of what you're talking about can be done other places too. I have a hosting program that I pay for that I use that I don't actually use very much, but I do like having the versatility that comes with the one that I use. But if you're really like the idea of Nation Builder, I would recommend trying to talk to Richard Wolf and see if he's got somebody that's tech savvy that is interested in the idea of CalExit. I think you might find that you have some people there that are, and I know they're a big Nation Builder user.
Okay, cool. Adam.
Yeah, just a quick comment to back up what Marcus was saying and what Lewis is saying. Sound they're both great, but to put it into like maybe a functional conclusion to that, it's not quite as scary as Marcus sounds, but to get your money's worth out of Nation Builder, you need a guy or a gal. You need someone dedicated who's consistent and reliable, who can allow other people to plug in and get the value out of it. So if you, and it could be you, Marcus, you know, it could, I'm not volunteering Indiana Marcus. I'm saying Marcus, California Marcus. But someone who puts in the 10 to 20 hours up front to familiarize and then is available for a few hours every week to run it and make sure that you're getting your value and that everybody else can put.
Yeah, that's it. Definitely.
Okay, any other comments on Nation Builder or questions about it? Okay, we're gonna move on. I just will say this, in 2016, that was the height, right? We had 80 people on an editorial board. We had 50 to 60 chapters. We had 400,000 members. And then rumors started. You know what happened. And so when we were having money coming in, we were able to afford Nation Builder. We could afford that bill. And so we were doing all sorts of action. And then the money dried up. And then we couldn't afford Nation Builder. So if we get Nation Builder back up, we have 100,000 people. Shit's gonna pop off crazy. Yeah. I don't know how to say it in fancy terms, but we get that thing up and running, I promise you more action than you can possibly wrap a ribbon around. So yeah, it's a big price tag, but we have everything set to do this. So, okay, moving on.
Real quick, Marcus, one thing I'll just add. I don't know the gentleman's name, but he was talking about alternatives. If I agree with that idea. I mean, if we don't have an expert with Nation Builder who can do the work and be reliably available to do that work for us on a day-to-day or weekly basis, then it might be a better idea to use a different system and have the email list as it currently is, a separate entity, and then maybe do widgets and plugins on a different hosting system so that we're not spending $1,500 a month and just using the basic version of it. I mean, you spend $1,500 a month if you can use all of it and get the most out of the system. But if we can't do that, we don't have an expert, then I would go, I think his name is TJ, then I would go and support TJ's idea to maybe use an alternative. Which is what we're currently doing, which is what we're currently doing now, basically.
Jason Wright, can you ask Dewonk Mahajan, who is an expert in data analytics, if he's familiar with the Nation Builder program? Okay, Jason's going to ask Dewonk. Dewonk's actually a data person. Super techie, expert data programmer, knows Python, all that stuff. Jason's going to follow up with Dewonk, who's also a board member, and see if maybe he knows Nation Builder. I'll also put out the call for anyone who knows Nation Builder and programming, and Yes, California will ask for help for that. Okay, moving on. We're going to introduce a longtime colleague of mine named Adam Kokesh. I've known Adam for years. He's a controversial figure like myself. Don't believe 2/3 of what you see in the internet about him. It ain't true. Same as me. My wiki page is massively inaccurate. Same thing with Adam's. He's been called all sorts of names that aren't accurate. And I just got to say, welcome, brother. I know you are who you are because you get called trash talk all the time. So you must be doing something right to actually challenge the power system where they wouldn't be that mad at you.
I don't know, man. Feels like a lot more love from where I'm sitting.
Okay.
But yeah,
okay.
first, just about the discussion, one last thing on Nation Builder. I support the goal of getting to that level of organization, and Nation Builder is one way to do it if we can get someone. And I would suggest you focus on recruiting someone for that general task. But for me, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself. I was born and raised in California, and then I relocated. I guess I learned better because I heard that California was going to fall off into the ocean, and so now I'm homesteading in Arizona in the mountains. I'm an hour west of Flagstaff, and y'all get my contact info through the WhatsApp. I'm on WhatsApp with my regular cell phone number. You can text me if you ever want to come visit. But I did really born and raised. Did Marine Corps boot camp, MCRD San Diego, Camp Pendleton. Was stationed there for a while. College in Claremont, and I think one of my I'm not here as the Arizona guy necessarily, but I think it would be fun to pledge that when California successfully secedes, I'll move back to California and then secede from California. So this is really, like, for me, it's about something bigger, and not just, hey, California should be separate from the United States, but that human beings have a moral, ethical right based in self-ownership, based on just being an independent consciousness in your own body, that you have a right to self-determination, that it is morally wrong to force you into a system that you don't want to be a part of. And California represents a huge breaking point or fault line, if you will, in the current dominant paradigm of, no, if you were born in this area, it's okay to force you into our collective, whether you like it or not. No, bullshit. And I think California seeking independence, it would be, really making Brexit look insignificant, could become the domino in a whole other, rather than nationalist, but human rights based global shift towards decentralization and localization about government. So I do a podcast Monday through Friday, 2 hours a day live. And I'm excited to be joined by Indiana Marcus, our guest booker, and my press secretary still. And one of the things that I want to bring to this project is the collaborative value of my platform. And, I've been interviewing Marcus for years about this. So anybody who's on this call, anybody who is, involved with this project, anybody that you guys recommend for anything secession related, but especially California secession related, obviously, you can email me, you can text me. I'm going to send you to Marcus to get it on our calendars. Marcus at thefreedomline.com. I'm Adam at thefreedomline.com. Again, my cell phone, you'll find it if you're in the WhatsApp group. It's not quite public. I keep my ringer off all the time, but you can text me anytime, day or night. Too many, people calling about bills and debts and stuff. So, just easier. Spam calls. Too easier to just keep the ringer off at all times. So one of the other things that I hope to bring to this project, I'll be listening in every week on these calls while I'm doing yard work here, landscaping in our homestead, maybe doing some construction work. But I'm also looking forward to introducing Marcus to some of my rich friends in California, doing some fundraising introductions, and helping take this organization to the next level that way. I think one of the responsibilities of what we're doing in this big board model that we've all signed on to here is, if we have the fundraising connections, that we at least set Marcus up for that, if not be the ones bringing the money in ourselves to fund this project, and be upfront about it and say, yeah, that's, and it's one of the nice things. Marcus being a figurehead for this, is to the extent that he is, we're fighting. It's easier to ask money for someone else. And so being in that sort of larger board model, gives us the I think the right avenue for asking and for making those introductions and letting Marcus seal the deal with his plans and his pitch, as he has, convinced us to be a part of this project. So, in terms of the part, I noticed there were some comments about parliamentary procedure and
let's get to that a little bit later, brother.
No. My point is, I think part of trusting this is that we trust Marcus to run, a collaborative process. And no one said we're using Robert's rules. Right now, it's Marcus's rules. Whatever he says goes. So I think we just, it's great that we help him in that process and in moderating this as a, Robert's rules oriented body. But no, we trust him to do, whatever is right for that process. And I think he's shown already that he can be trusted to at least honor the collaborative spirit that he is saying that we are all involved in here, and making sure that everybody's voice is heard if your name is going to be on this. So I think that's great. And Marcus Pulis in Indiana, hopefully, I don't know if it's this coming Wednesday or next Wednesday, but I think we could do, a secession themed panel once a month with, 3 guests for 2 hours. And we're building up in our own format development to get to doing a 3-guest panel every Wednesday anyway. So to make one secession themed with a CalExit rep, we're going to make it happen. So thank you, Marcus, for inviting me. It's an honor to be included in this project like this.
I want to call something out right now. I've known 2 things. One, I've known Adam for many years, and I'm going to take this opportunity to highlight a couple things. First, incredible success. So on the screen right now, you're looking at Nicholas Wildstar. You're also looking at Robert Stark. You're also looking at Sam Cheney with Weaponized News. Sam, can you wave? And you're also looking at Adam Kokesh and his booker, Marcus Pulis. Additionally, there's another board member who's starting the California Dreaming podcast. We have 4 separate independent media channels where people are willing to interview board members already. Nicholas Wildstar with the Black Side of Liberty, Sam Cheney with Weaponized News, Adam Kokesh with Adam versus the Man, and Robert Stark with the Robert Stark News Hour, I think is what it's called. Sorry, Robert. Additionally, we have the California Dreaming podcast. We're up to 4 or 5 independent channels. Everybody's willing to interview a board member. Everybody's on the board. You can reach out to these people. It's up to them if they're going to interview you, and scheduling. That's up to them. But I want to talk about how the goal of this group is to get word out that Californians are interested in talking about independence. We now have 5 separate independent media channels hooked up to this already, and we're at week 3. Consider that. Nicholas Wildstar, Sam Cheney, Adam Kokesh, Robert Stark, and Darren Brown. I'll give you the information. please reach out to them. Please keep the conversation going. Furthermore, I have to say this, and I'll move on. Nick Wildstar, Adam, and myself all belong to a special group. Nicholas is African American. I'm Latino. And Adam is Jewish. And all of us were called white supremacists by the media for our talking points. Recognize the world that you live in. A black man, a Latino man, and a Jewish man. White supremacists. That's what the news said. Must be true.
I knew it. I knew it.
So I just want you to know, this is the era that we live in, where the news can say incredible, silly things and people buy it. For example, I'm a Russian spy. I get $1 million every day direct from Vladimir Putin, and I can pick him up on the phone and call him at any moment. That's what the news says. Must be completely true. Nicholas Wildstar hates Donald Trump, but because he's recall, he's part of a secret white supremacist Trump-loving plot. I know that's garbage.
Right.
So I just needed to point out, this is the world we live in. Don't necessarily believe what you see on the internet. If you don't talk to that person and find out, you're going to get bad intel. I can't tell you, the other day, somebody just saw something we posted and goes, you guys must all be white supremacists. Really? Because of one post. Did you even call me? Did you read my book? Did you see my interviews? Have you seen what we've said for the last 2 years? No. I saw one post and just assumed.
Have you seen this nose?
Yeah. So that's where we're at. I had to point that out too.
I'm half Jewish, half German, and my German half really hates my Jewish half. So,
I'm half Latino, okay? But I grew up with a bunch of Latinos and undocumented people in my family and speaking Spanish and tortillas instead of white bread. And I was still called a white supremacist because I went to Texas, said that I don't share your values, Texas, at all. And then I took pictures with secessionist leaders there, some of whom may have been white supremacists. I gave a speech saying, I don't agree. We don't agree. I want out. Let's have a divorce. All skipped. Marcus took a picture with those people. He must completely agree with everything they think. Let's completely ignore the speech for an hour beforehand that shot all of that down.
Well,
real quick, Adam, and then we're gonna move on.
I'm tempted to make it as a motion, but I'll just say it as a productive suggestion, hopefully, and maybe people can just thumbs up, thumbs down to give Marcus some feedback. But I would suggest that Marcus make it a priority to recruit someone as a media coordinator to make sure that we can play to this strength. So if you decide that you want to do an interview or that you want someone else to do our little team circuit and get out, that they can coordinate with that, and that you would empower that person to be a member of the executive committee of this body.
I love that idea. How do you feel? Thumbs up, thumbs down, everybody? Okay, I love that voting. Okay, moving on. Thank you. I just had to get that out of the way because you're going to see more of that. I saw one thing and I jumped to conclusions. Did I call you? Did I ask? Did I look at the other stuff? Did I do my homework? No. I just jumped to conclusions. That's totally cool these days. And this is an important lesson because, folks, we're going to be doing controversial statements going into the future that are pro-California. People are going to jump to conclusions. Be ready. Okay, moving on. We're going to go to updates on projects. So we have updates on projects, and then we will have the vote on where Sue can make her case on joining the board. So right now, updates on projects. The first one is Nicholas Wildstar. On the recall debate is finalized. Candidates have accepted. The date has been set for March 1st at 5:30 on StreamYard. This project is effectively done, and we're waiting for it to happen. Nicholas Wildstar, governor candidate, recall supporter. Could you tell us what's going on and the progress we've made, sir?
We've made wonderful progress. Hello, everyone. Nicholas Wildstar. Hello, CalEXIT Congress board member now, or Congress member now, I guess. But also a candidate running for California governor, and suggested to the board a few weeks ago that we should coordinate a debate for all of the candidates that have declared their candidacy for 2022. Since it looks as if the recall is going to be successful to get Gavin Newsom out of office. So we will be having a recall election here soon in California. I would say maybe August, September, something like that. So California Exit has actually pioneered and led the way on getting candidates exposure by having a debate. So this debate has been scheduled for March 1st. Since we had a few candidates respond back, we sent out invitations to all of the declared candidates off of the Wikipedia page, as well as the Secretary of State's website. So every candidate, including the newly announced and declared mayor of San Diego, Kevin Faulconer. So he received an invitation as well. But so far, we've only had myself, of course, accept the invitation, candidate Dakota Vaughn and Grover Caltharp. So 3 candidates, and this will be on March 1st at 5:30 Pacific time on the Yes California YouTube channel. I don't know, Marcus, did you want to switch that to the Marcus Ruiz Evans YouTube
We're
channel?
going to be hosting it on StreamYard, and I'm still working with Nick to get that out. I'll get to that in a second, Nick, on StreamYard.
Yes, so it's going to be a broadcast on StreamYard live. So everyone watching out there in the world will be able to watch it and ask questions. Exit, Yes California will have 5 questions that they've already prepared and sent out to all of the candidates. And 3 of those questions will be accepted. So I'll find the list of those questions here for you guys in just a moment. But anyways, it has been locked in stone. And what's good is, like I said, with California, Yes California leading the way on this, other entities, other organizations are now jumping on the bandwagon. One of the other candidates also sent me an invitation for a debate that's going to be scheduled March 24th. So it's looking as if, again, March, April, is going to be the months when the rest of the press and, every other organization starts to get on board with, scheduling debates. So again, hats off to Yes California. And thank you guys for supporting the idea. At this point, it's all a matter of marketing, just blasting it, getting it out there. Since social media is going to be our best tool. Unfortunately, Facebook and Instagram has banned political advertisements. So it's going to be up to word of mouth, more than anything to help get it out there and make things, make it as big as possible. And that's about it. Any questions, anybody?
No. Well, yeah. Any questions about the recall debate for Nicholas Wildstar, governor candidate?
Who reached out to debate with you?
The 2 other candidates that did respond are Grover Caltharp and Dakota Vaughn.
Yeah, but you said somebody else reached out to you from another platform. And yeah, I'll start tagging Mr. Major Williams to see if I can rub that little thing up into this here conversation.
Yeah.
Have we decided on moderatorship? Like, who's going to moderate that?
Yes. So Yes California will be choosing an additional moderator if Marcus has who do you have lined up? I believe. Tom Elias.
Yeah, so I've recommended, I've talked to Tom Elias. Tom Elias was the reporter that actually got the 2003 recall done. So he's huge. He said he would host it if we got a lot of big names. So if we don't get a lot of big names, he's not going to host it. I will approach him soon. If he doesn't do it, I have nominated myself and Sue Hirsch to jointly moderate it. Sue's a lefty. I'm kind of middle of the road. Sue's done a podcast for CalExit in the past and was pretty good at that. Now, we'll only be asking those 3 questions Nicholas came up with 2 additional questions, so the questions would already be formatted. We'd really just be moderating the response from those people. Everybody's going to get the same 5 questions, 2 designed for recall candidates, 3 designed for regular Californians, and we'll have more discussion on that further, but that was my suggestion. I've worked well with Sue on moderation, and I think that she'd be good in this role. Additionally, I do have to say that Nicholas was one of the first people that I met who was talking about the recall debate, and he was there way early on. Also, Lewis was the person who said, you need to get behind the recall debate. He said that months ago. And so, yes, California started saying, look, we want to reach out to conservatives. Yes, 3/4 of California is liberal, but 1/4, millions of people are conservative. We've never said you don't get to be part of California. We've always said you can be conservative, you know the way the place is going, and you are welcome to stay here. And we always wanted to step away from saying, oh, you're going to get rounded up and pushed out, or we're going to come and get you. So we wanted to show that we are willing to talk to conservatives here, because conservatives in America pay attention to how we treat conservatives in California. Conservatives in America pay attention to how we treat conservatives in California. And so if we're not accommodating to Adam, 1 second. If we're not accommodating to California conservatives, then we can't really be taken at value reaching out to American conservatives. And if we're not reaching out to American conservatives, then we should not be taken seriously as a peaceful secession organization. The only peaceful way to secession is through the law. If you are not talking about using the law, you're talking about illegal activity, which usually leads to violence. We are committed to peaceful secession. That means we must follow the law, which means we must get a vote from Congress, which means we must reach out to 25 red states, which means we must be accommodating to conservatives here. It all fits together. We are about a week away from having the Texas Nationalist Movement announce their official ambassador as a permanent member of this board. Additionally, today we had Mr. Kokesh in Arizona, who's famous amongst conservatives, talk. He's also talking about more links to other conservatives. Additionally, Yes, California has already established contact with 13 other conservatives in 12 other states. So I understand that sometimes we have posts about Trump, and I get that that offends Californians. That is not our intention. Our intention is to show that we will tolerate and work with people who voted for Trump as long as you stand for California values. And that we've never said, we get to determine who you vote for. If you stand for California values, you're in. We have a couple Trump voters on the board. I'm proud to do that. I'm proud to reach out to these people. I am proud to show that we're willing to talk with you. It's the same thing I did in Texas years ago. Look, I don't share your values. I hate that man. But we're not going to legally secede if we're not trying to do this peacefully and in coordination and with a vote. And that means contact and networking. And that means credibility. And yes, California has gone out of its way over the last month, when Trump voters are the most hated, most deplatformed, to say, while the rest of America who is left and Californians hate you and will never speak with you, we'll actually treat you fairly. No, it doesn't mean that we agree with your values, but we'll actually treat you fairly. And so we're the lefties, we're the Californians who will work with conservatives because we actually want a peaceful vote. I got to tell you, conservatives pay attention to when you do things when it's hard to do them. I grew up in a hardcore Republican military family. Talk's cheap. Actions when it was tough is how you get credibility. And I got to say, folks, we're getting that credibility right now. Yes, Adam, and then the professor, and then we're going to move on. Quickly, please. Adam, then the professor.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. I just wanted a quick sort of suggestion, request, comment on what Mr. Wildstar was saying. Love all of it. Please, as you have promotional opportunities, use the WhatsApp group to share links that you want promoted on social media. And my general request to the group is that we use that WhatsApp group as a place to keep sharing stuff, where if we want it shared, it's just expected that people will take it as a request to repeat it out. Personally, I reject the general left-right spectrum entirely. I voted illegally in California because in Arizona, my home state, I'm a felon and therefore not allowed to vote. So I voted in California for Dr. Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian nominee. And I think I just want to remind, before Indiana Marcus gets too upset about some of this terminology, that California Marcus is using the California definition of conservative, which is anybody to the right of Pelosi. Okay, so don't.
You're right. It's a big difference.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Americans. Thank you, Americans. Yes, in California, they don't understand. So, I mean, Professor, comments about the recall debate. This is our update section, so I want to keep comments about the recall debate. Professor Williams, please quickly, and then we have more people.
Yes, the comment I wanted to make is that I think we can offer conservatives an option that if California became its own independent nation, that then it could be divided up into states, and those areas that are conservative can have their own state government. So that would appeal to the state of Jefferson people, others around the state. So there's a really good map at the California government website that shows 10 economic zones of California. And I think that could be a good basis for dividing up into 10 states within California. So that's something to give better options to people across the political spectrum.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next update.
Marcus, real quick, this isn't really a comment. I just got to add, I know this guy who made this statement about localization being the cure for polarization. And what you're seeing, to wrap that up, is what that is. When you localize government, you get people from all spectrums, whether they call themselves an anarchist or they call themselves a Republican or Democrat. They can climb on to your platform and be on your side, because that's what localization does.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mike,
okay, we're going to move on to the next
really
update.
Quickly, there was some questions in the comments. Someone asked how many more signatures are needed.
I saw that. So what I want to do is, just because people are going to watch this video, I like to keep the comments tied to the agenda topic at the moment. So I will address those questions in a second. I saw them, Nick. This is the update section. I want to keep it on because when we start interjecting, people get confused. They're like, what? Huh? What? So I hear you. Let me get to those comments in a few minutes. Any other comments about the recall debate exclusively? We will make sure everybody has time at the end to cover anything else. This is just on the recall debate. Okay, then I'm going to add one last thing.
Zoro has his hand
yes, up. Matt, recall debate. Okay, let me unmute you. You have to unmute yourself, Matt.
Thank you. A question I would like to put to the gubernatorial candidates, and this is directly on our behalf as CalExit. Would you be willing to be the last governor of the U.S. state of California and the first president of the independent Republic of California?
Sick.
You want me to answer that?
No. We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on. Thank you, Matt. That's a great point.
Short answer, yes.
I will just say that right now, 3 months ago, Louis Marinelli approached me and he said, this recall thing's going to happen. And I said, I don't know. And so we talked about that, and he was right. This is how Yes California wins. We say things when no one else is saying them. So in 2015, before we were big, we talked about having all undocumented citizens become full citizens. We were the only people doing that. In 2016, we were talking about holding police officers to account and making speeches in front of police offices. Nobody else was doing that. Then in 2017, we were talking about Texas versus white, and that we had the legal right to secede, and that we were donor state, and nobody else was doing that. And each time you're crazy, that's crazy. And then 2 years later, it happens and everyone embraces the idea. Well, I'd like to continue that trend, and I'd like to introduce you to what, this is how we get success. We take stances before anyone else is. And then when the rest of the world goes, oh, that's right, they have to go, well, who called that first? The secessionists? What else do they understand better than the rest of us? How come we got this wrong and they were correct? And how come they continue to point out trends like Texas versus white, donor state, we are a nation state? I remember 4 years ago when we said nation state, we were laughed at. Now everyone says it. Governor says it. So recall debate. 3 months ago, Lewis goes, get behind this. It's going to happen. Now, I brought that up to the other people in CalExit. They laughed. That'll never happen. It's going nowhere. How dare you, a majority of Californians, support this? Guess what happened this week? Newsom lost his majority, exactly as Lewis predicted 3 months ago. Lewis is a genius at media predictions. I'll leave it there. Next update, Marcus Poulos and Adam Kokesh. There is a, Yes, California was asked by Adam and the Man on behalf of Marcus Poulos to be part of a panel on secession for February 17th at 9 a.m., which will be showing, I think, to thousands and thousands of Americans. Marcus Poulos, what is this event?
Yeah, after speaking with last week with you guys and seeing people from everywhere, from New Hampshire to California, talking about Texas, I just thought to myself, okay, Adam's wanted for some time to have a several different, as he took some of my thunder away earlier, but that's all right. He's been wanting to do some forums covering different topics. We've done one on cannabis. We've done a few other ones on the show. And so I thought this would be perfect as a forum because it goes along the lines of things that Adam has talked about multiple times in the past. There's already a working relationship with CalExit. And so I just wanted to come on this week. And again, we're wanting to, Marcus, you covered it. We did, I've got it scheduled right now, and I've got confirmation from Marcus on the 17th. I'm also working with Mark Kreslins from Oklahoma about coming on for that forum as well. But I'd like to shoot for 5 people to be on the first forum, and if we can get at least 3, we're good. So if I can get Mark and Mark Kreslins and Marcus on there, that's 2. So I'm going to need at least 1 more. And so what I would encourage people, anyone who's listening to this, is to reach out to me at marcus@thefreedomline.com, and I can get you, and that goes for if you want to look into the future as well on coming on maybe as yourself and not being part of the forum. That would be something that I can facilitate, and you guys can get on there. I do want to back up and say that, that most of the people within this group would be welcome to come on to Adam versus the Man and give their story, because many of these people have individual stories outside of secession as well. And so just reach out to me and we can make that happen. I do want to back up again and say that I do have my own channel as well. It's called Aquarian Anarchy. And you also would be welcome to come onto that. And I have to say that I'm kind of part of have gotten myself into the Hotep Nation with Hotep Jesus. And I don't work for Hotep Jesus. He's just a friend. But so everybody else was, a white supremacist, and they happen to be from other ethnicities. I'm a black I'm a black supremacist, and I'm white. So at least we're good to go. So anyway, if you could, please reach out to me at marcus@thefreedomline.com, and I can get you on Adam versus the Man. Right now, the most pressing date is the 17th, so the sooner the better, because I am building and we're not quite there yet. So thanks again for the time to speak, and if anybody has any further questions, don't hesitate to ask me or reach out, and I would certainly be happy to answer.
Awesome. Awesome. Any questions about the secession panel? Yes, California will be the only group from California there. It will be a conversation on secession with people from around America. Professor Walter Williams.
Just a comment about our use of words. Earlier, we talked about that secession has a more negative connotation than the word peaceful separation. And so I think it's important for us to use words like independence or peaceful separation as opposed to secession whenever we can.
Okay. Any other comments on the secession or peaceful separation panel coming up? Okay, then we're going to move on to the next update. Outreach Director John Simha has connected with Cole Sternberg of the Free Republic of California. John's been the outreach director for Yes California for years. He has made things happen I didn't think were possible. He single-handedly launched Return California. He got contacts with the indigenous. He also reached out to the Alex Salmond show in Scotland and got them to respond. We almost had an interview on the Alex Salmond show. That's the Prime Minister of Scotland talking about CalExit. That was exclusively because of John. He also got Cole Sternberg, who's the artist who developed a museum exhibit to California Leaving America to happen, which we point to as a reason why CalEx is going to happen. This guy's a major artist, and no one knows him. He just made a whole museum exhibit about how California is going to be a separate country in LA. His wife is very famous and has a lot of pull, and we don't know these people. They're just doing it. I tried to reach out to him 5 times. I got nowhere. The outreach director, John Simha, did it, and he got a response. He's working with him to hopefully include language about returning land to the indigenous. John has also done a lot of things, and I simply couldn't make those things happen without him. So John Simha, would you like to talk about connecting with Cole Sternberg of the Free Republic of California website?
Hey, yes, thank you, Marcus. Appreciate the acknowledgement. We've been doing a lot of really successful outreach lately. The conversation with Cole's been really interesting because his Free Republic of California exhibit in El Segundo, the Museum of Art there, has some really interesting parallels to what we've been working on for so long in our organization. And the acknowledgement of our request to change the language a little bit was really well received. The conversation began, and he made an edit of the edit that I sent him of the suggestion. I think he was really moved that that we engaged with his art so deeply, and I haven't checked the site recently to see if he's made any of the updates, but where we were successful with him was in the acknowledgement of his inclusion of the indigenous voice. He had the entire exhibit there in El Segundo, but he had an extra space, an attached gallery that he had advertised would be for visiting exhibits that related to the Freedom Republic. And the first one that he did was Alvarado Alvarez, and that was an indigenous author or artist rather. So the request to include more language about indigenous rights and values was really well received, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses.
That's we Yes California took a stance a couple of years ago, and I was privileged to go on Tucker Carlson's show and offend him, saying we're going to return land to the indigenous. It won't really have an impact on the California economy. It's not the end of the story. It is only a start. The indigenous need every last piece of land we can give them, and they need a lot more than that. John took it from there, and wow, we are on our 7th listening session with indigenous nations, real life indigenous nations. There's like 13 of them now, and 7 different listening sessions with real indigenous coming on video saying, yeah, and John is on it. He goes, if California's independent, would you be okay with having all your land returned? Yeah. Now, I know that may not seem like a whole lot, but it's huge. Indian Country Today covered this. That is the gold standard. Horrible term. Sorry, I take that back. It's a good standard. I'm sorry. It's not what I meant. I apologize. I'm just excited. Indian Country Today covered this. And so did Kauglia Radio, which is another indigenous radio station. So we have the biggest indigenous news source in America covered this Return California project, which was started by Yes California. And we have one of the largest indigenous radio stations in California covering this. And they're saying, hey, there's this group of people who believe in independence for California, who also think all the indigenous need to be paid back for the genocide. Wow. And the thing was, is that the LA Times and San Francisco Chronicle editorial boards, the people who run the LA Times and run the San Francisco Chronicle said, you'll never get it done. I am proud to prove everybody who runs the LA Times and everybody who runs the SF Chronicle wrong, dead ass wrong as you could be. It took years, but this is also where Yes California wins by saying, no, this is the right thing to do. And we're going to just do it. When it's not popular, when no one backs us, when everybody says it's a stupid idea. And then years later, we go, we were totally right and you got it wrong. That's called winning. We'll move on to the next update. Thank you, John. I love you as a brother. Jason Wright. Jason did something I really like, which is he called me out. So I like it when you guys call me out on marketing, on ideas. Hey, that's not right. Like last week, Professor Darren called me out. We were talking about a poll with Jeremy Zogby. I went off for a few minutes and then Professor Darren came in and goes, nah, dude, I don't think it's like that. Awesome. My mama taught me something. Better to hear your mistakes from your friends because your enemies will love pointing it out in front of you in public. This is about getting better. This is about constantly improving. Please call me out. If I'm saying something wrong, I'm saying something we can do, call me out. That's what this is about, getting better. So with that, Jason saw the Bay Area Regional Council. Jim Wunderman is president of the Bay Area Regional Council. Jim Wunderman spent 2 hours talking about the Yes California petition to secede. Jim Wunderman is president of the top 500 companies in Silicon Valley. Facebook, Google, Twitter, perhaps you've heard of them. He's the president of a group that represents all of them. He spent 2 hours talking about the Yes California exclusively funded CalExit petition. He's also having a meeting and he is his group. Jason looked at that and had some examples for the rest of us that he'd like to share on how we can make this even better. Jason, for a few minutes briefly, because I want to get through the updates, I'm going to post the video link below. What did you see and what is it you think that we should copy here, sir? Jason Wright.
Yeah, so I put a link to the Twitter update that has the link to the video. Link 21 is the name of the project, and it goes through the Capitol Corridor. It's all about trains, transportation, you know, making California a little more easily accessible and mobile, which obviously during these times can have quite a significant impact for us. They met, and there's like, you know, the head of the Capitol Corridor BART, the Caltrain person, the like representatives of a certain status that like I was definitely the smallest fish there, without a doubt. That being said, they still answered my questions. They use StreamYard very, very effectively, might I add. Their meeting follows the Robert's Rules of Order kind of structure. It wasn't a board meeting per se, so there weren't like votes and motions. It was mostly just discussion. However, it still followed that same kind of formal structure, one person speaking at a time, you know, raising hands to ask questions, you know, stuff like that. It also went almost exactingly to the minute of 1 hour, meaning they kept it, they started it on time, they finished it on time. They kept it a very timely thing while discussing this huge of an issue in this great of depth and detail. Like, I saw it as an example for us, something that we all might be able to study and just kind of take a little bit of note as far as, you know, maybe if we want to be more professional or observed as operating at a higher level of professionality, that we consider holding ourselves in, you know, certain way, doing certain things, saying certain things, or not, right? Because, you know, when you're an official who represents the whole organization, there are things that you might not want to say because the whole organization gets put on blast for it. You know, and it's pretty apparent watching these folks that everything is both well thought out and on the fly. So they're answering questions as they come up, but they're answering it really, really well because they've already done all of their, so basically they think about, you know, oh gee, I'm going to attend this meeting tomorrow, and more than likely, what are some of the questions that'll come up? What are some of the things that might get talked about, right? And they prepare themselves for it. And you can tell because the moment some random question comes up, they go, oh yeah, and I would like to address that. That's a great question. I've got the answer for it, right? You don't have to always have the answer, but being prepared to answer questions, right? I remember Lewis a couple of weeks ago had mentioned that if we are not prepared, yeah, Marcus, if we are not prepared to take or to field the tough questions, that we kind of, I mean, we'll never really make it anyway because tough questions will come up, and if you can never ever deal with the tough questions, the moment one comes up, you're done. So, you know, it kind of speaks further to do the research, the planning, the preparation before getting to the meeting, right? Not saying anyone doesn't do any of this. I'm just saying that I attended this meeting and noticed that this is a great example for us of like, if we operate like these guys, there ain't a person out there who's going to see us and go, oh no, they're a joke.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Jason. Jason had another idea. I'm going to table that for a second. We'll get back to that, Jason. I promise you, about the foreign committee. Now, Lewis is here. Great. Sue Hirsch is asked to be a member of the board, and she played by the rules so far. So, Sue, you have 10 minutes, as promised, to say whatever you would like to showcase why you should be a member of the board. Sue Hirsch.
All right, first, let me tell you exactly who I am. And I'm not going to lie to you. I was born and raised very, very Democratic, very left. And lately, I've been leaning more towards Peace and Freedom Party. And I still have a lot of unlearning to do with that indoctrination into the Democratic Party. I did a lot of campaign parties with my parents for Democratic candidates. So people like Louis Marinelli and I are never going to see politically eye to eye, but he's an awesome geek, and he contributes a lot of very awesome productivity to your board, as I have seen, working with all these marketing platforms. At the same time, there are things that I see going on social media that we have to be very careful of, because they don't display or portray who we are as a board, if I'm to be on your board. It's things that go on Facebook, like these conversations that become very public between two people who I'll call A and B. So A says, you voted for evil. She says this to B, you voted for evil, no matter what the intention was. And we have to defend that every single time we say Calexit. We lose credibility no matter how you try to spin it. I'm tired of defending you. I confidently can defend every BS lie people come at me with, but your vote I cannot defend. I'm passionate and vocal about secession, and you made my job harder, so thanks for that. And then B replies, you're welcome. It's people like you who solidify my support for people like Donald Trump. And A says back, wow, I'm officially done with Yes California. So we alienated A and a lot of other people. I was watching the whole conversation go down. And it was just horrifying that we portrayed Calexit, the entire movement, that way. I feel like US politics should be taking a backseat to Calexit and California politics, because we are so much better than US politics. We are so much better than either US party or US party candidate, or any of them, actually. There are lots of US parties, even if they're smaller parties than the Democratic and the Republican Party. And I was just, I got to say again, I was horrified that we portrayed ourselves this way, as supporting a party that was a part of so much sowing of bigotry and divisiveness. And I know that neither party is innocent of doing things like that. You know, and over time throughout history, we've seen both parties do a lot of bad things and some good things. But just in this past term, the Republican Party, you have to admit, has done a lot more bad than good, and the bad has really counterbalanced for a while all the good they were able to do as a party that actually supported the United States as a whole, or looked to any US citizen's best interest as a whole. So what I want to bring to the board is an element of helping to keep us on track, and just another element of marketing, in that I would like to start a podcast and interview each and every one of you, and call the podcast something newsy, like Calexit News or Calexit in the News, and get each board member's take on what's going on, what you're doing, what the projects are, and you'd get like the whole hour, and I would just sit there and let you talk and ask you questions to bring out more of what you're doing and more of what your take is on what's going on with Calexit and what you see yourself doing, what you see your role being later as time goes on. And I yield the floor.
Marcus,
you got to unmute.
Sorry. Thank you, Sue. Appreciate that. Thank you for coming. Since Lewis was talked about, I have to give Lewis equal time. Lewis, you have 5 minutes to say whatever you would like.
I don't know what to say. Sue only said nice things about me, so I don't have anything to say. Thank you for your compliments.
Okay.
I mean, in the context that you give me 5 minutes, I don't know what to say because of 5 minutes to thank. She only said nice things about me, so I don't have anything to say for 5 minutes.
Okay. Then I'll say a couple things. I've worked very hard to launch a new organization dedicated to positive energy, marketing ideas, working together, and I've worked really hard at keeping negative energy out. There's a lot of background struggles you guys never hear about. Why? Because it's a waste of time. I have said for years, and if you know me, drama is the opposite of activism. Let me repeat myself. Drama is the opposite of activism. If you're doing drama, you ain't getting nothing done. I've gotten 10 different emails about this one event. I've been harassed. I've been called 3 times about when's Sue going to be here, 3 different times. And then I was emailed 10 times by Sue.
Which event?
This one here, having Sue be able to come and speak on the board. I talked to Sue once on the phone for an hour. Then I talked to her on a meeting for 30 minutes. Then she had Matt call me and asked about the same date after I already talked to her twice. And then she emailed me 10 times to make sure that the date was set. And she also accused me of misleading her on when the date was set when I already told her twice. That's harassment. So I just want to put this in context. When you come on, and Sue, you told me, my goal is to get Lewis off the board. So day one, you said, hey, my goal to join the board is to kick someone off the board, get them off. You said that a couple times. Additionally, after I already told you the date, you said, I attended that meeting and I don't remember you ever giving me the date. It made it look like I was being shady. I don't appreciate that. I talked to you twice. I went over this, and then you called me and emailed me 10 more times on the same date. That's called lobbying. So, and then on those emails, it would always be, well, here's something another CalExit group said about how they don't like Lewis. Got it. I understand. People are upset. Totally understood, message received. What I don't need is to be emailed every 2 days about here's another statement from someone who rejected my offer to join the board and then wants to complain about how I'm running the board. Yes, I want to repeat that. I offered board positions to many people. Some of them rejected it. Those people are now going around saying, here's how you should run the board. So let me ask board members, is that cool? I offer you a position, you reject it, and then you have to harass me telling me how to run the thing that you rejected when I came to you in good friendship? Board members, is that the kind of thing you want? Where people reject the board and then they tell us what to do. I don't care what the board said. I'm telling you how to run it. And I rejected being board.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because I didn't hear any of these concerns from the first person. I mean, from the source. Sue Hirsch, she has problems with me. She took her opportunity to say so. Instead, she complimented me. So I don't know if she has these concerns. Why doesn't she express them herself? Why are you speaking on her behalf?
Because I'm trying to frame the conversation and everything that got us up to date. And I've been reading a ton of emails that I haven't taken time to share because it's drama. Drama is the enemy of activism. The more you talk about someone's upset about something, guess what happens? It's a seductress. The more you, let's talk about that. Someone's upset. Let's spend time on that. Hey, I want to organize a event. Hey, I want to talk about advertising. Hey, I want to talk about fundraising. Nope. We need to talk about how someone's upset with someone. Folks, I was there in 2017. I spent half of my time on activism and half on someone said something and someone's mad. We lost. Total fucking failure. Spending time on someone's upset about something someone said is a waste of time. It's the enemy of activism, and it literally almost destroyed Yes California in 2017. And so here we are again. Hey, Marcus, did you see how someone's upset? Hey, Marcus, did you see how someone's upset? Hey, Marcus, did you see how someone's upset? Yes, I did. I saw it. So let me direct this to the people who this is actually about, which isn't Sue. Lewis ain't going nowhere, folks. He's here. I made the decision. It's done. You're going to have to come and get me out before he ever goes anywhere. And the fact that you rejected my offer to join the board means I don't care what you have to say. Additionally, I've talked to board members and they said, Marcus, why do we care what people who rejected a position on the board have to say? So I got most people already backing me. So you had said that because Lewis voted for Trump, that he was evil. I have one of the social media posts that you said that. Additionally, you had said that Lewis was not on the board. That was misinformation. And calling someone evil for the way they voted is really negative. The goal of Yes California is to reach out to conservatives. How am I supposed to do that saying we're bringing on board members who say you voted for Trump, you're evil? Additionally, how am I supposed to say that we're building a positive organization where we bring on board members who say, my goal is to kick out a board member? How am I supposed to do that? Yes.
Can I?
Yes,
well,
please.
now that, I mean, Sue went out of her way to kind of make that conversation anonymous by naming the participants A and B. But now that you've, let the cat out of the bag there, I guess I'm B in the conversation. Well, you know what, the as we've spoken about before, I'm talking to Marcus directly here. When we have let people into our inner circle to manage our organization who are on the fence, that's just trouble for us. If what I do in the ballot box is enough to take someone's position on Calix and say, I no longer support Calexit, if that's enough, then were they really a supporter of Calix to begin with? And so when people say, oh, Lewis said this, Lewis said that, or whatever, and all of a sudden they don't support Calexit, well, I contend to say that they didn't support it to begin with. And our position as an organization has always been that regardless of whatever controversy this organization creates, and that's what we do sometimes, that's who we are. When people get the opportunity to vote for independence in the ballot box with the curtains closed, they will vote yes if they support it, regardless of whatever I've said, regardless of wherever I live, regardless of whoever I voted for. When they close that curtain, they will vote yes if they support CalExit. So we don't need to appease them. We don't need to say we want as many people to come into our group as possible. We need the die-hard supporters, the people who support the campaign, people like you, people like me, no matter what happens, no matter who the president is. Because the problem is not the president, the problem is the system. The problem is not who the occupant of the White House is, the problem is the institutional problems California faces in the United States. Lack of representation, donor states. That doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter who I vote for. It doesn't matter where I live. It matters that California is underrepresented, and that won't be changed based on who the president is. And so our campaign has always succeeded when we as an organization have said we're going to keep our inner core full of hardcore supporters who believe in California independence no matter what anybody says or what anybody does. That's what they believe in their hearts, and nothing's going to change it. That's why people on this call today are people who have been involved no matter what. For example, Marx has been in this since the beginning, over about 10 years now. I've been in this since 2014. The people on this call are here today regardless of the fact that I'm calling in from Russia, because they believe in the greater cause. And I've made no secret of the fact that I call in from Russia. I live in Russia. I'm going to live in Russia. My daughter will be born here. She'll be a Russian citizen, so on and so forth. Who cares? You are all on this call today because, as Marcus has been alluding to, you don't care about that. You care about the greater mission. And you're ready to move beyond the drama to get the mission accomplished. And that's what our key is. When we are successful because we have those types of supporters. Now, I don't remember who the particular person was in that conversation, but the person, and a lot of people do it actually. It's not the first time I've come across it. A lot of people do it where
wasn't
they,
me in the conversation. Sorry to interrupt. I just had to clarify that. Someone said that I said you were evil, and I don't remember saying that publicly at all because I just don't talk smack about my.
I don't think it was Sue because I would have remembered. I know Sue's name. I would have.
Let's let him finish. Let's let Lewis finish, please.
Yeah, I don't think it was Sue because I would have recognized the name. I know Sue, and we know each other. So I don't recognize that it was some other person or whatever.
Right.
And we've come across this, and I've personally come across it many times, where people said, "Oh, something happened, and now I no longer support CALEXIT." Well, then you never supported it really to begin with. And so we've always tried to keep our distance from those people, because if we fill our group with those type of people, we're going to be constantly dealing with these kind of questions. As soon as something goes a little bit in the direction they don't like, they're going to like take their ball and go home. They're going to flip the Monopoly board over because they don't like the direction things are happening. That's not going to be healthy for your board. You need to have your board full of diehard supporters who are in it to the end, no matter what happens.
Okay, let's go to Marcus Poulos, and then we'll go to Professor Walter Williams and Adam. And I'm going to remind everybody, the more time we talk about this, the more time we're spending on drama, and that means the less time we're doing activism. So just consider that when you're making your comments. Marcus, then Adam, and Marcus, then the professor, and then finally Adam. So Marcus Poulos, please.
Yeah, I actually am somewhat backing you up, Marcus. Always remember that we are revolutionaries. At the end of the day, whether or not you like that title or not, that's what we are. And that it is against the interests of the state, in this particular case, the United States federal government, for us to get along. Instead of arguing amongst ourselves, we are allies. I don't care if you voted for Trump. I don't care if you voted for Joe Jorgensen. I don't care if you voted for Biden. I don't care if you stayed home. I don't care. You are my ally because it is in my best interest for CalExit to become a thing, for CalExit to move forward. And the more they can get us arguing over nonsense, the more we do their work for them. And so at the end of the day, I don't care who somebody voted for, and stop listening to people who are using divide and conquer tactics to divide the movement before it has a chance to be successful.
Professor Walter Williams.
Yes, I reiterate what Marcus just said. I got involved about a year ago, and hearing all these things that happened years before are really not relevant to my having gotten involved in the last year. So, that's ancient history at this point, and we need to go on and focus on, and I agree with what Lewis said about we just need to focus on, getting the job done in the future. And so there is an element of drama in some of this stuff that, and it can be divide and rule. And so let's be conscious of all that. Now, having said that, I would say, Marcus Ruiz, that, in your position as a leader, you're going to hear a lot of criticism, and don't let it get to you. But at the same time, always be open to listening to ideas. And so if it's somebody that you invited to join the board and they refused, but they still have, a suggestion, that's not harassment, that's a suggestion. And so be open to listening to everybody, because if you don't do that, and if you consider that stuff like that harassment, all it's going to do is wear you down. Just be open to listening to ideas from everybody. That's your stance. Doesn't mean you have to take them, but always be open to listen.
Yeah, and Marcus, one more thing, if I could say, Marcus, I just wanted to point out that, for years, you've done whatever you could to try to build bridges between the various factions of supporters of CalExit. And recently, you kind of made a decision that you were going to start focusing directly on rebuilding Yes California, specifically. as opposed to building up the other organizations or using Yes California as a platform to grow the other organizations. And all of a sudden, when you're no longer directing your resources and time to building their organizations, now they all of a sudden have problems with me again, bringing up the past to kind of cause this division within Yes California as it starts to regrow from the ground up again. So it seems kind of ironic that, and I'm not specifically talking about Sue here, but in general, I mean, there's going to be people from the other groups who want to see Yes California fail because they can fill the vacuum then. There's no question that Yes California is the largest, most well-known group around the world that supports California independence. We are the movement, and the people that are on this call are the movement as we develop this Congress and move forward. And these other groups out there, while they support the same general mission, and I believe that they do in their hearts, they're going to try to fill a vacuum if they can knock us down, because it's just going to help them grow in the places that we currently occupy. So we need to be mindful of the fact that although many people out there may support the same mission of California independence, there's going to be, because it's politics, kind of a cutthroat attitude towards trying to get rid of your quote unquote competitors. And it just seems kind of ironic that right now, all of a sudden, some of this past nonsense gets drawn up again because you've decided that we're going to focus on Yes California now, as opposed to, as you've been doing for the last 2 years, trying to build up the other groups. And so keep that in mind as well, because that just shows that what we're doing now in rebuilding Yes California is the right path forward. And it's scaring those people who will suffer as a result.
Adam Kokesh. Thank you, Louis.
I am shocked and appalled and disappointed that secession is insufficient to bring people together without question. But if it's not, since it appears, I got to point out the taste of organics, creamy organic peanut butter spread with honey and knockoff Girl Scout Thin Mint cookies, that is going to bring everybody together beyond all this bullshit. Okay, but a couple serious points real quick. I think one of the calls that I would see from this organizationally where you are in this process, Marcus, is that, by the way, yeah, this is, I just grabbed these, they were handy, and together this is like the most delicious thing I've ever tasted.
Brother.
Okay, so to have like a judicial committee where bullshit goes to die and be separated from real issues that need to be handled, I think I would just, again, thumbs up, thumbs down suggestion. Let's have a judicial committee so this never interferes with the main work of the board again. You can kind of hand shit off to the people who want to settle drama, you know? And then finally, my last point, I guess, is, another thing along with that is developing like a protocol for messaging when you're speaking on behalf of the organization. You know, I would support Marcus or a committee coming up with, you know, messaging or, you know, or social media interaction guidelines, just as, you know, and whatever you want to do to enshrine that in bylaws or some enforcement, whatever. But yeah, it is over time, and I do have to get going pretty quickly here. But the last point would be like a questioning, Marcus. Where are we going with this conversation around Sue? What do you want to happen?
Right. So what I'd like to do is pass this on to a committee. I'd like to offer a judicial committee. I feel that Sue did make a statement about Louis. Sue saying she didn't. Let's have a committee look into it. I'll present all the evidence and we can go over it in detail, but not at these meetings. So raise your hand if you would like to be on the judicial committee, and the first activity will be looking into the approval of Sue. Sue, you're not a board member, so you can't be on the committee. So who would like to be on the judicial committee? Raise your hand right now and I will add you. I see TJ, Jason, Matt. Nick, is that a hand or is that a, okay. Jason, Nick, I'm sorry, Jason, TJ, and Matt. Anyone else want to be on the judicial committee? Okay, TJ, Jason, Matt, and Marcus will be on the judicial committee. We will look into the past statements and we will determine what's true and what's not true. Then we will report back to the board with recommendations from there. Does that seem fair to board members? Trying to be fair here. Okay, moving on. I just talked to the South African Independence Party. They might be joining us any minute now to speak. Let me get back to the agenda. And okay, sorry, give me 1 second here.
While you're doing that, Marcus,
Sure.
I'm going to have to go as well pretty soon. For that South African Independence Party person, could you pass along my contact information and tell them they would be welcome as well on the secession panel on the 17th?
Understood.
Versus the man.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good to me.
And for those of you, I believe that put your email address in the chat. I have already reached out. Just get a hold of me at Marcus at thefreedomline.com, and I will get you set up for the 17th. Thank you very much for letting me speak, Marcus, and I look forward to seeing you guys at a later time.
Thank you.
y'all.
Okay. We're about to turn it over to the public comment section, but before we do, I'd like to talk about, okay, I'm going to turn off the chat because I am being lobbied right at this minute. I'm trying to focus on the meeting. So, board members, we were having a conversation on a funding vehicle, 501c3, 501c4, and I believe Lewis had said that it would be better to do a
I was suggesting the alternative of 527, not necessarily that it would be better, but that it's another tool out there depending on what you do, because 501c4 has some limitations, as does 527. So I think it's important for the board to look at the table I sent you that kind of explains on various different topics what a 501c4 can do and can't do or shouldn't do, and the same thing for 527s, and sort of gauge what you want to do. But from my interpretation, if you're a group that's supposed to be political in nature as a primary purpose, that's 527. And if you're a social welfare organization that's primarily concerned about social welfare, but sometimes engaged in politics, that's 501c4. If you're completely educational in nature and no politics, that's 501c3. So obviously we wouldn't go with 501c3. The question is, are we predominantly a political organization or predominantly a social welfare organization, which we would have to defend to some extent if anybody were to question it. So I think that from my point of view, but I'm not a lawyer, the safer bet would be 527, because that allows us to be as political as we want to be. As political as we want to be. We wouldn't have to worry about what percentage of our work is political versus what percentage of it is social welfare, and so on and so forth. The downside of that is that donor lists are made in public. So people who donated to Yes California as a 527 would be public knowledge. What's that? I don't think it's going to work.
Okay.
You can send it, I'll send it to the chat room in general. I'll send you what I sent to Marcus. I'll send it to the general chat room so people can, and WhatsApp, so people can see the chart. The 501c4 donors are private information. So you just kind of have to, as a group, look at the two and kind of weigh the pros and cons and decide which path you want to go. But let the group decide.
So our goal, we have a committee. If you'd like to be on the committee for fundraising, you can ask to join right now. Jason Wright, Mike Beecher, Donald Sutton, Matt Owen, Alistair Caithness, and Camby's Mostafizadeh are on that committee. If you'd like to be on the fundraising committee where we work into these issues and have meetings on Wednesdays at 7, please email me directly. I have gotten Farhad Khorsani to agree to be a lawyer who will be on the board, and I'm very close to getting Suzanne Sherman, another California practicing lawyer, to be on the board. Additionally, I've talked to Sam Chaney, who's a certified accountant, about hiring CompuServe Solutions as an accountant. So we're trying to get an official accountant and 2 lawyers to be on the board. We will additionally need roles for secretary, president, and vice president. Some of the decisions made by that group is don't form a 501c3 because it limits political activity. So we're not doing that. Don't file a DBA. No forming a 501c3 and a 501c4 because it leads to an accounting error. Use Form 990EZ because it is transparent and decreases the likeliness of an audit. And 501c4 kind of lets us use the activities. But Lewis is talking about a 527. Is that right, Lewis?
Yeah, 527 is at least worth looking into, because I mean, as I understand, our efforts are predominantly and almost maybe even exclusively political in nature.
Yeah.
Whereas in 501c4, you're going to have to demonstrate that your primary purpose is not politics, but some social benefit. And that's why it's tax exempt, because you're providing some kind of benefit to society. Well, we could argue amongst ourselves, California independence is beneficial to society because blah, 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 blah. But we're going to be sitting there defending that to the IRS. Is that a social benefit of some sort or whatever? And they're probably going to rule that it's politics. So I don't know. I think that the group should look at those two groups carefully and decide which one they want to go with. My interpretation is if they go with 501c4, they're going to spend time from time to time defending the fact that our group is not a political one, primarily a political organization, and that politics is secondary. As opposed to if you went 527, you could openly be political. In fact, you're required to be political, and you're required to make campaign contributions and donations. That's what 527 is about, is to be as political as possible. 501c4 is about social welfare predominantly, but you're allowed to engage in some advocacy that promotes your mission. For example, I think a 501c4 would be something like, what was the 501c4? I used to be a part of one, I forget. But anyway, 501c4 would be something that would promote some general social benefit, like let's say recycling, but then they use some of their money to educate the public in some kind of political manner, send out mailers, TV commercials about recycling that kind of support certain political parties or whatever. But I don't think they can specifically support candidates by name. Like, I don't think they can say like support, what's his Mr. Wildstar, but they could say this is Mr. Wildstar and he supports blah 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 blah. And so indirectly you could, I guess, support Wildstar, but you couldn't specifically say vote for Wildstar. Whereas if you're 527, you could not only say vote for Wildstar, you could say vote for Wildstar because he's our candidate. So there's but there's also some drawbacks to the 527. So that's why I think the group should just look at it and make a decision.
Jason.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm getting what Lewis is getting at, and I see the feasibility. I see what he's talking about. I would ask, and just a simple request, Lewis, would you be willing to join us on Wednesday, if possible, to discuss this during the committee meeting for this whole thing?
That's going to depend on the time of it, because as you know, I'm not in the same time zone.
Yeah.
It's Wednesdays at 7 Pacific.
Wednesdays at 7 p.m.
Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific is the kind of middle of the week road, because not everyone can make Sunday, but we'll of course keep these conversations also on Sunday. It's basically an additional meeting thing for the weekday, because not everyone can do Sunday afternoon.
That's gonna. I think that's either 8 p.m. or 6 p.m. for me. I'll try. Let me get back to you on a one-to-one basis, or let me try to be. What's her name? What's the press secretary's name? Psaki. Let me circle back to you on that.
Yeah,
circle back
nice.
to you on that, and I'll let you know when we get closer to.
Yeah.
Right on.
Why don't you also give horrible answers about
I've been
supporting the
waiting for an
dictator of
opportunity
Egypt
to say,
on a
let me
hot
circle
mic?
back. I finally got an opportunity. Let me circle back. I finally got.
Okay, let me cover a few more details. The group had also decided that, and the reason that I like the 527 that Lewis is mentioning is that the donors all have to be public. So right away with this group, especially from Don Sutton's leadership and Alistair Caithness' leadership, we're making a super transparent, up and up and up and up fundraising group. Why? Because we're going to be targeted. So this has to be Dudley do-right all the way through. I like the 527 because all the donors are public. Additionally, that's why Don suggested doing the 990 EZ tax form, because you can't write anything off. So everything is transparent, 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 transparent. That's what we're going for. Yes, Lewis.
I know I'm an advocate of the 527, as you know, but one of the drawbacks to that is the donors are public. Mm-hmm. In other words, fewer people are going to donate because they don't want their names attached to secession. So it's going to be more difficult to raise funds, especially from people like, rich people with public profiles, because they may not be so happy about being associated with that publicly. So keep that in mind as well.
That's a good point. So maybe 501c4 is the right answer, but if we do that, like you said, now we're trying to work more.
You'd have to have a primary purpose that wasn't political, and then you could, as a secondary purpose, from time to time engage in political advocacy. But you'd have to demonstrate that you have a bona fide, like, non-political primary objective. And that's where you would have to be, you know, demonstrating that. So I mean, you'd have to be doing things besides politics for most of your work, and you'd have to demonstrate that. So it's difficult. So it's you got to balance it. But I still think the 527 is the best way to go, because of this reason. People in the beginning may not want to support publicly CalExit, put their name behind it, but some people will. Especially if they're donating small amounts and they're not famous people or whatever. But at some point in time, when CalExit grows to be more, let's just say, popular or well accepted, then those people who have big profiles will want to be publicly known to support CalExit because they're opportunists and they want to get in on it because now all of a sudden it's safe. Those people aren't necessarily the most courageous people who are willing to put their reputations on the line. But as soon as it becomes something that they think they can make an opportunity for making a name for themselves out of, then they'll start donating and they'll be okay with having their names publicly listed as such.
Okay, a couple other notes from the group that they had decided. This is the fundraising committee. We meet on Wednesdays at 7. Anyone's free to be part of that if you are a board member. Trying to go on the up and up. Here's the other thing they said. We must have only members of this board, about 4 or 5 people, must be U.S. citizens, must be living in California, and must have CA residency. So I love you all. Everybody can be part of the discussion how we're going to do this. Obviously, Lewis knows way more than I do about this. Obviously, Jason knows a lot more than I do. Our goal is to make this as Dudley Do Right as possible because we're going to be targeted. And I also think we're going to get a lot of donations. The fact is that Nate Silver 2 weeks ago said on his own show, it's reasonable to talk about California seceding because they can't live in an American system that elects Republicans to power. Think what you want. Nate Silver is a well-respected voice. Yes, I know, blah, 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 screw Nate Silver, got it, okay? But in America, he's a well-respected voice. 2 weeks ago on his show, he said, he interrupted his own group and goes, maybe we should talk about there's not a United States and what if California secedes because they can't live under Republican rule? So that is literally what Yes California said about 2 weeks before. So 2 weeks before Nate Silver said it, we said, look, time is now to have this conversation. You don't necessarily have to think it's the right answer, but you're dumb if you don't think it's reasonable to have this conversation now. After a coup in the Capitol, after Meet the Press a month before the coup said America looks like a failed Latin American state and Politico, and then you had a coup, it's unstable, folks. And the idea that you think it's going to work all perfect is ridiculous. So we're having this conversation. We think now's the time. Right after Yes California made that strategic, bold move to go in this new direction, Nate Silver 538 says the same thing. What that tell you? It's time. The other thing is that there's 78 million people in America, or basically half of the US outside of California, who voted for Trump. And in 2016, Trump did win the election. There has been zero evidence saying that he did not win it, and he won 51 or 50% of the vote. So that's 2 elections in a row where about half of America outside of California likes Trump. We need to reach out to those people. Also, they hate us, okay? They hate us. You can watch Fox News. They really don't like California. They think we're the fault of everything. They had an entire group about how we're the bad guys. We are routinely the example of what not to be. So that's 78 million people ready to donate. Feel me? They want us gone. We want gone. We have gone out of our way to show, and we have taken abuse from fellow Californians for being tolerant of Trump voters, internally and speaking with them outside. So folks, our credibility is going to be rock hard real soon. Because I got to tell you, conservatives don't follow talk. They follow action. And when you did it, when it was tough, they pay attention. And we just did it. I know we've taken losses. I know we've lost some board members. I know we've lost some big opportunities. And I apologize to you for the time that you spent and it didn't pay out. But we're going huge. We will be able to, in weeks, have recognition amongst all conservatives in America, 78 million people, that we are the only Californians who will actually work with you and work alongside with you and are willing to work with you. That positions us as the fundraising destination for 78 million people who hate California right now. You get how big I'm talking about with money? I understand we took some hits, but we're having conservatives in California here. We're having conservatives in America there. We just got Adam Kokesh from Arizona. We're going to have the ambassador TNM joining up here. Who do you think is going to be recognized in America that thinks all Californians are crazy lefties as the only group willing to be talked to? It's us. 78 million people. They give $5. We're capitalized at, I don't know, $200 million in a week. So big time. I understand we took some losses, but I'm positioning us for big time. That's why we're doing all this. So we want to have the fundraising machine. It needs to be completely kosher and on the up and up. There's going to be some decision making about that, but we are going to file this in a way that makes us the most kosher and transparent that we can possibly be, because I think there's going to be way more money than we can possibly even fathom. And I just want to make sure it's totally kosher coming in. Any comments on that before we move on to another subject? Jason.
Yeah, I'd just like to further point out that, like when we say that talk is cheap, the term rhino, Republican in name only, that's not something the Democrats go around, saying. That's not a Democrats label for the right. That's not the middle's label for the right. That's not the Green Party or the Libertarian label for the right. That comes from the conservative section, the Republican side. Sorry, not just conservative. It comes from the Republican Party specifically, that there are people within their entity who say, you're kind of a voter of convenience. You seem to only come around when it's safe. Sure, you might vote with us on our issues, but ultimately, you're only one of us in name only. Now, again, this speaks to the fact that folks on the red side of the spectrum throughout all 50 states generally find talk as very cheap. You either act or you don't. And those who act when it's not popular, when it's hard, when you very likely run the risk of, crashing and burning, but you're willing to at least take that risk, it says, and not just to people on the right, but this is to any reasonable person anywhere on the political spectrum. It can tell us that, hey, this person actually cares. They're not voting for it out of convenience. They're not joining the movement because now there's 100 million people and it's popular. They were in it to win it from day one. And it becomes very clear. Someone can talk about how, I've been in this for 3 years now and championing the cause. And ultimately, if the movement's been around for 50 years and they've only been in it for 3, and they only have come along once it got popular, no one's going to really see them as a true leader of the movement. They might see that, yeah, this person's aligned with the movement, sure, but ultimately they're not going to, when they think who is leading this movement, who is totally 100% committed and has been there from the beginning, they're not going to think of the person who just joined 3 years ago once it got popular. they're going to think of the person who founded the organization, the person who filed the initiative. They're going to think about, the fact that Marcus spent a crap ton of his own money during a time of plague to ensure that we have an initiative up. I mean, who do I see as a leader of this movement? Marcus, 100%. I consider myself a supporting role, not a lead actor, not one of the stars. Marcus is the star. Why? Because Marcus has been putting it in hardcore. So
we're all leaders. We're all leaders. No one owns CalExit. I love you, Jason. Thank you. I just got to make sure no one owns CalExit. A UCLA student popularized it. Okay, so if anybody's going to claim it, and it's something 1/3 of Californians dream of. I didn't make people think that. So yeah, I am a leader. We're all leaders. Everybody should step up. Everybody should speak. This is everyone's movement. Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to reaffirm for everyone that, there are talkers and there are doers. And of the doers, there are two kinds of doers. Those out of convenience and those who actually believe. And what we got here is seeming to be a group of those who actually believe. And I love that. And I love to see it continue on that road and continue to grow in that capacity. And only am encouraging that we continue that and never falter in that building of just hardcore.
And folks, get it right. The reason I look good is because of you. All of you know I talk to you guys a ton in the background. It's like, how does he always know what to do? I don't. I steal ideas. I'm a good thief. I steal. I love stealing. I love taking other people's ideas and going, blah, 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 blah. And then people assume it was my idea. It wasn't. Folks, only about 20% of what you hear me say was actually something I thought of. Okay. Bye, TJ. Thank you. A lot of this comes from John, Jason, Matt, Walter, Sam, Lewis, a lot from Lewis. I've learned marketing from Lewis. I learned how to be professional from Lewis. I learned how to reach out to little people from Jason. I learned how to occasionally get it right speaking to the indigenous, and I learned how to appreciate the indigenous from John. I learned how to reach out to Baja people, and I learned that we're not doing enough for the undocumented from Matt. And from Sam, I learned how to be fair to conservatives. And so I learned something from all you guys. That's just know that when you're pointing at me, I'm pointing right back at you. 20% is mine, 80% is yours. There's no way in hell I could have figured this out, period. This is our movement. But I want to get back to fundraising. Comments on fundraising. Fundraising, ideas, don't do this, do this. Any opinions from anybody on fundraising or forming this machine? If not, we'll move on.
I just want to I got something to say about it. There is something in this political environment. There is something to say about being anonymous, as Lewis said, because I mean, the establishment will attack you if they don't like your idea, and that may dissuade some people from wanting to publicly put their name on giving money to CalExit.
Any other comments? This is just like, if you have technical details, if you have things you think we should watch out for, comments on the fundraising machine and what you think it should do or be.
Yeah, you're gonna get canceled, like Sam was saying. You're gonna get canceled if they see you on a donation report for CalExit. Another thing I would point out though is, and we ran into this before, way back in the beginning when it was like me and you and Sam. We talked about taking large donations from people. People who give large donations are going to expect things like control of what you do and or messaging and certain things like that. So I would, as a pointer there, I know that you want to raise funds, but maybe the group should take some kind of voluntary effort to limit or cap certain amounts of funds from certain individuals, so as to prevent any one person from being able to basically buy the movement by saying, well, if you want my annual $500,000, then you're going to do X, Y, Z. But that's just, me always being afraid of outsiders influencing what we do.
No, that happened before. You're talking about real world experience though, aren't you? That happened.
Well,
Someone tried to buy us out in 2017.
Well, yeah, we did. We had, what was his name?
Shervin
Keshawar or something like that. Yeah.
Peshawar.
And, he got in contact with us, and the news, that's when things got scary for the system, because the system realized, wait a minute, here's a wealthy individual who says he's going to put his money behind CalExit. And then the system got scared. Then after that comes all the Russia stories, because they were starting to take it seriously. Taking it seriously. Before that, we had a lot of positive press stories, and all of a sudden, a Silicon Valley investor with a lot of money says he's going to put money behind there. We're in touch with him, and he wants to, change things and kind of organize the group in a different way. And we rejected that. And then, he didn't pursue. He was talking about for some while starting his own organization, but then he didn't actually end up doing that either. So I would, just keep that in people's minds, though, because when people start donating money and it's large lumps of money, then they're going to usually expect to have some kind of say in how things are run, and then you're going to open the organization up to fundamental changes. Maybe they're welcome changes, maybe they're not, but just something to keep in mind.
That's why I want to have board votes. So somebody's like, hey, I'm going to have this X. I want to be able to go to the board and say, okay, we've been saying Y. Now they want us to say X. But we get this cash. Are you all cool with us retrofitting our message? I think when we put it that way, a lot of people are going to think hard about that. It's not just free money.
Maybe the group should, when it comes to large donations, actually vote to accept a large donation from a particular individual. If I don't know, if Bill Gates wanted to donate $1 million a year, but he said that CalExit has to, push vaccines or something like that, maybe people on CalExit support vaccines, they'd go with it. But if someone else, like who's a rich conservative, I don't know, the Koch brothers, right? If the Koch brothers came in and said, here's $1 million a year, but you got to promote, the election in 2020 was stolen, then maybe you wouldn't want to do that.
True.
So
yeah,
even if you're getting $1 million, is the group willing to start promoting that message? Talk about it. I guess.
I'm more concerned about someone comes with money and says, I back CalExit, screw the feds, but I need you to take this stance on this particular issue that's kind of obscure, like water rights specifically in Colusa County. We stand for X Corp in Colusa County. And I could see people coming to us and going, I'm going to take the state movement and say they back my particular boutique issue and you get money. And then we're taking the money because it seems like in California values, but now we're walking ourselves into a local dispute where maybe that person's the bad guy and the people opposing him in Colusa County are the good guys. And then now we just set ourselves up for some reporter to come along and go, you back the monster. I could see that because, yeah.
Would we be able to have some sort of stipulation within the organization taking in the money, the 501c4 or 527, whichever? Would we be able to have some sort of stipulation in there that any and all donations are made with the knowledge and acceptance that it will bear zero influence and that the donator is doing so because they wish to donate, right? And not to try to influence the movement or whatever. However, we might do the whole thing. Like, I'm just wondering if we could legally put that stipulation, like a disclaimer.
Well, Jason, I think that disclaimer, I think is if it's not formally written anywhere, I think it's a common thing, but I think in practice it works out where they could assert some pressure on you, even if they don't say directly, you have to do ABC to keep this money. You know, if they give you $1 million and then a month later they're asking you for something, it's difficult to then reject that. And especially if you know that you're not going to get the next check, or that you might tarnish that relationship by not giving them what they want the first time, you might know that that source of money is going to dry up. So you might be indirectly influenced or pressured into giving them what they want. Not that there's some kind of sinister meeting where they're going to outright say, I'll give you X number of dollars if you do ABC. But, you know, I think if it's, you know, the oil company or gas company comes to Yes California and says, here's $1 million, no strings attached. And then Proposition 27 comes up in 4 years and it's against the gas company, they're probably going to be looking for Yes California to take a position in support of the gas company on that proposition. And they've given donations to the last 4 years. And so now you don't do that. And it's going to probably harm your relationship with that gas company. And they're probably going to stop donating to you the following year. Now you've already been living on their donations for the last 4 years. You have a certain type of budget that you now have gotten accustomed to. So now to lose that source of income would be disastrous. And you're going to be in a difficult position to say, no, we can't support that position. So it just really makes it difficult, I think.
Yeah, and you know, hearing you say that, it actually reminds me of what you said earlier about, you know, folks could just say, well, then I'm going to just take my ball and go home.
Yeah.
Flip the Monopoly board over. I actually lost someone who I considered them my best friend for 15 years because I told him very clearly, I'm not the head of CalExit. One, it's a movement. Two, I could not change the entire platform and yada yada and, you know, do this and that. That wouldn't be up to me. And this person's response was, well, then I think I have to withdraw my support from CalExit. And, you know, it hit me as, well, they never really were fully on board then anyway.
Yeah,
but
well,
I do see that, you know, just accepting the money allows them that option to, whether they exercise it or not, you know, that's up to them. But it does provide that room for, this is my ball, I'm taking it and leaving. And I do get that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those people like that. And a lot of them are people who joined the campaign as a result of the 2016 presidential election, which is why I personally like when Yes California makes our controversial statements, or when I go and say something in favor of Trump, because it kind of serves as a filter to encourage those people who were only a part of our campaign because Trump was president to go another direction with their lives. And if people after, for example, in California, we know California doesn't like Donald Trump. I understand that. I accept that. I'm an outsider on that question. I like Donald Trump. But if you're still with CalExit, even though one of his members are an outspoken Trump supporter, that means I can trust you're with CalExit to the end. And when people say something about, oh, you voted for evil or you voted for Donald Trump, then that's just, you know, if that changes their mind, that means that they're not with CalExit to the end. So I kind of like that we make those controversial statements no matter what the topic is, because it allows us to kind of shake the little bin there and get out the people who don't really support what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and you know, I know it's a little bit off topic, Marcus. I'm sorry, but I'd also like to further that just slightly, and say that, yeah, you know, the shaking of the tree is kind of necessary as a gardener. If you don't trim off the dead growth, the plant does not do well. It does not bloom upright. It doesn't grow to the fullness that it could.
Yeah, quality over quantity.
I'd like to say something too, if I could.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I support things that are controversial and people having their own personal views. I would never try and convince someone not to have the view. But as far as the entire organization goes, we have a real world example of that stance being presented on our platform, reflecting negatively on the whole organization. The example is the video, the music video that we just made. I spent a solid 3 months back and forth editing this video. Got permission from the musician to use the video. We finished the edit. I sent it to her, and she came back within like half an hour saying that she felt duped, that she doesn't want her video to be used in an organization that supports Donald Trump, and that observation, that interpretation was very harmful to us. And I think it's really important that individually we can support whoever we want, but as far as the organization goes, there's no justification for supporting or not supporting a president. We're trying to get away from that system. We shouldn't be supporting Democrats or Republicans. We should be supporting independence from all of that mess. So while it's our individual rights to support whoever we want as individuals, to have it reflect on the organization, I think is a really detrimental.
Any comments on that, or any comments on fundraising?
Yes. Yes.
Matt, then Jason.
People in an alliance don't have to have common values for the alliance to go forward and achieve its common goal. Chinese governments don't have common values, yet have been forced to abide by what the U.S. is doing.
If you could mute yourself if you're not speaking, we're getting feedback. If you're not speaking, please mute. Sorry, Matt.
The folks who pulled off the dissolution of the Soviet Union did not have common values, and we've seen that play out since that dissolution. Yet they did manage to dissolve the USSR. So both alliances and dissolutions validate what's being done as far as reaching out to people who may be set against our values, but nonetheless have a vested interest in our separation. Okay, it's something that needs to be done. And it shows again that we are serious. We are serious about our independence. We didn't have common values with the Texians way back in when we started our journey of liberation. Okay, that's why our flags are different. Yet we made use of the fact that they were, for their reasons, seeking independence, and so were we. So we're at that same point again. And indeed, with the descendants of the Texians and the Californios, so to speak, politically at least, we're at that same point where we have to ally with people who do not have our values in order to get what we want done and get their support for what they want done, which may, again, put us at loggerheads later on, but it will foster a peaceful dissolution, like the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Okay, so yeah, definitely we have to reach out to the aisle. And the other thing, from our perspective, is that we have to get away from, supporting in any way the major two U.S. parties. And Sue has taken an extraordinary step for her. She's actually left the Democratic Party for my party, Peace and Freedom. in support of that. Okay. She's finally gotten so disgusted with that party that she's gone in and re-registered PFP. And we got some things in, we got a plan we're cooking up that, you know, maybe in the public comment section, we can brief you on. Let's see what Sue says about doing that. But yeah, we are moving forward towards independence by great leaps and bounds, even if we're leaping and bounding with two legs on the opposite side of the aisle. We're still leaping and bounding. Kudos.
Thank you, Matt. Sue wanted to speak. I'm ending this recording in 6 minutes, so please be cognizant of that if you have comments. Just because I get worn out, I'm human. So Sue, and please say whatever you need to say, and then we'll have a few more comments. I'm ending this in 5 minutes. Sorry, my brain can only handle so much. Sue Hirsch.
Totally fine. I totally get it. And thank you for hosting this meeting, Marcus. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear on the fact that I have no argument with anyone on the board, no matter what I said earlier. What I said earlier, I said to demonstrate that we need to present an image of unity. And I think I heard you all back what I said right after I said it. And thank you for confirming it, all of you. I really appreciate it. And yes, I am now PFP, and I just wanted to make sure everyone had an accurate picture of who I am. And I promise to not be hurt if you don't vote me onto the board. I would like to be there with you, backing every single one of you. If anyone wants to run for anything, I will back you to the hilt. I'll bump doors for you. I have some experience with campaign party leading, organizing, because I saw my mom doing a lot of that all through my childhood. So I'll give you the shirt off my back in a supportive way. And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, anyone else? 4 minutes and then we're ending the recording. Any other comments from anyone else about anything you'd like to cover? Jason.
Yeah, back to what we were talking about with Lewis and Matt, as far as inclusivity and, you know, voting and personal beliefs and whatnot. I'd just like to make the point that, you know, the National Sozialistische Party, the Nazi party of Germany before World War II, one of their fascist techniques was to discredit those who do not believe what they believe. You didn't vote the way I vote, therefore you're evil. You're not us because you voted against Hitler. I'm trying to make this very, very clear point without having to really overstate it, but fascist techniques are not only very much anti-California values, but they're anti-inclusive as well. One cannot be a part of a movement claiming to be inclusive and, you know, having representation of many and not just one, right? You can't claim that and then also say, you don't like what I'm doing, you can leave, you can get out of my land. Or you didn't vote for my guy, therefore you're not part of me, you're not one of us, right? It's fascist. No matter whether you want to admit that you've been a fascist about things or not, if you've been operating that way, then you have been operating as a fascist operates. We at Yes California are very much against that type of operation, which is why we are so inclusive. Why, you know, yeah, you voted for someone, I voted for someone else, and ultimately, what we're here for isn't about who we voted for. It's about 40 million people and our right to self-determination. I have the right to choose for myself, don't I? So no one gets to tell me my vote is a bad vote or a good vote. just as much as I can't decide anyone else's vote being a good vote or a bad vote. If you vote, and that's your vote. That's your choice. That's not my choice. My choice is my vote. My vote is my choice. For anyone to try to imply that someone's vote is not valid, someone's vote is a wrong vote, speaks very clearly to how little they understand about democratic process and value. Because in a true democratic setting, one chooses for themselves and votes how they feel. So,
Yeah,
Okay,
Jason, I
thank
agree
you.
with
just
that.
wanted to
I
make
think
that
that
clear.
I think that the core mission here we have, Marcus, and I'll be really quick because I got to go to bed because I'm the only one who can claim it's 1 o'clock in the morning. And so I just wanted to
I love you, dude. I love you, brother,
piggyback
and
on
I
that
couldn't be here
because of
without
the
you.
fact that we are
Couldn't be here
trying to
without you.
demonstrate that we can be better from what we currently have. We can make California better than what it currently has in the American system. And that's why Yes California is a group where we have people of the far right and the far left working together. That's a rarity in American politics and society today. And if we want to demonstrate, the best way to demonstrate is to lead by example. And what example are we setting? We're setting an example that the people behind CalExit are those who believe that the people of the far right and the far left can actually work together. And if we can set that example within our own board, then at least we have the higher ground, the moral ground to stand there and say, we can do this in California as a whole. And then we can eradicate the problems that bring us down, those problems that are in Washington, D.C. with political gridlock and the war between the left and the right. That's an American problem, not a California problem. And therefore, we need to set that example within our own group if we intend to show the whole state that that is possible in an independent California.
I love you, dude. You taught me so much. I'm going to end the recording now. I think I've been fair and let everybody have their turn. I'm stopping the recording now. You don't have to go. I'm going to stop recording. Do you want to stop the cloud recording?